Hello and welcome to Hindsighting, where we discuss all the movies to win the Best Picture Oscar and try to figure out if this picture truly is the best or is time rendered a different verdict. I'm Edward Clown. My guest today is an actor on stage in the big and little screens like Netflix, iTunes, Freeform, various festivals, and even your aircraft. Her solo show, The Great Brain Robbery, may soon be coming to a stage near you. Jennifer Lee Weaver, not only do I want to welcome you back to Hindsighting, but also for kicking off our third season.
Woohoo! Congratulations.
Thank you. And we're going to be covering the 1950s this season.
Yay.
Today we're hindsighting the Best Picture of 1950, All About Eve. From 14 nominations, it also won Oscars for Best Director, Best Screenplay, Best Supporting Actor, Best Costume Design, and Best Sound Recording. It was nominated against Born Yesterday, Father of the Bride, King Solomon's Mines, and Sunset Boulevard. So we're going to new the 50s. This is new. And yeah, this is interesting because season one, to recap for people briefly, was a quest to prove whether the 2000s were as bad as I remembered them. And season two was a quest to prove that, the 1980s was amazing. I wanted to give it its due, which I think we did. I didn't think I had a thesis for this season, but, and this isn't something that I've lived through. Neither one of us were alive during this decade, so I have no nostalgia for the 50s. These are old movies, now they're just older. And that's not a bad thing, but that's obviously baked into hindsight because we're going to be talking about the 20s, the 30s, the 40s. And so this is the farthest back we've ever gone up to now. We're obviously going to go all the way back to the 20s. But so I didn't think I really had a thesis for this. And past and future guest Michael Moskowitz kind of pointed out to me, and I want to know what you think about this.
Please.
I think what was going on in the 50s is going on now, and I'm going to explain. I think in the 50s, Hollywood was in an existential crisis. There was an existential threat against movies.
Because of TV.
Because of TV, exactly.
Yeah.
TV was coming, TV was already, the year we're talking about, it already existed. TVs were starting to show up in more houses. And there was this fear that movies and TV couldn't coexist. And we see, even in the year we're talking about, not this movie we're talking about, but in the nominees, we see one movie that's nominated, King Solomon's Mines, is in color and is shot on location in Africa because you can't do that on TV, at least not back then. So movies had to start providing something that you could not see on your screen. We see a format war in terms of widescreen. Every studio has their version of widescreen, of CinemaScope. It eventually becomes one thing. We see 3D. We see all these gimmicks to get people into theater.
Big budget musicals.
The whole thing is like, okay, how do we get people into the theater? Whereas just a few years before, there was no other options. And this is making me think about AI and streaming.
Sure.
These two
verticals.
What's that?
Verticals.
Verticals? What do you mean by verticals? You mean Instagram?
Verticals they're starting to blow up. They're basically something to view on your phone vertically or your device vertically.
Okay.
They started out maybe within the last 2 years as being really short, as in 3-minute episodes that were basically the worst soap opera you could imagine type of material. But now people are realizing that the younger generation's tuning in. So Issa Rae started a vertical division production company, and there's others popping up because I think people all want to get in on the next thing and make it hopefully better.
Right. Right. That's interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
So I knew, I never heard the term, but I just guessed, right. It had something to do with the phone, social media.
Watching on your phone. It's a little TV is what it is, right?
Yeah. And I think, and when Mike pointed that out to me, I was like, oh my God, we're living through this now, which is
very much so.
Gives me a little bit of hope because, movies survived television, TV and movie can coexist. I think that streaming and movies can coexist. As we're recording this, there's a really robust box office going on and two really small original movies. Obsession and Backrooms, neither of which I've seen at the time we're recording this. Both very small movies. Backrooms was $10 million. Obsession was $700,000.
And the Backrooms, is that the one with the really young director?
Yes.
Okay.
That director's 20 years old.
Yeah.
Both these movies have made over $100 million. I think one's over 200. This is as we're recording this.
And they don't have big stars, is that right?
I believe,
or somewhat.
Obsession does, and Backrooms, I think, has Chiwetel Ejiofor and the lady from Sentimental Value and The Worst Person in the World, Renata. I can't remember. She's nominated for an Oscar.
Okay.
I'm embarrassed.
So
I can't
people
pronounce
with
it.
credits,
People
but
with
they're
credits, but no
not
big stars.
right. That's what I
Yes,
meant.
yes.
Yeah.
Backrooms has actors, has very good actors,
Right.
but nobody that you could build a movie around and get financing.
Exactly.
Yes. So yes, neither movie has, and I mean, we're also, this is like a whole other podcast. I mean, I think we're in an era now. I mean, we're here. Do you think we're post movie star? Because I do. Do you think we have movie stars anymore?
Well, it just makes me think. I actually haven't read her book, but Amy Nicholson wrote a book called Tom Cruise, the Last Movie Star.
I've actually read it.
Oh, wow. I shouldn't quote her and not having read her book. Sorry, Amy, but I heard it's a great book.
Yeah.
And that's her argument, right? That he was basically, in terms of what we think of movie star.
Yeah, I think
When you say movie star, you're probably thinking like back in the day, if someone said, I have Tom Cruise attached to this project, it would get made. Is that what you mean?
Well, yes and no. I think we still have that. I think there are certain people who, if you have them attached, the movie will get made. I just don't know, and this isn't so much like a stat, it's just a thesis. I don't know who you can put in a movie today that everyone's going to go and see it and they're enough. Like Tom Cruise was that, Tom Hanks was that, Julia Roberts.
But I think do you think that has to do with the amount of niche work that's out there, and there's just an audience for all these different things? And back then there were way less choices.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a factor. I think there's more choices now, and I think that I've always said, and I've said it on this podcast, and I think the movies that we're talking about are Backrooms and Obsession are, people are going to see that concept. They're both horror, thriller genre movies. And in those genres, particularly horror fans love the concept. They don't give a fuck who's in it.
That's true.
That's what I love about them. You don't need a big star to be in a horror movie.
And it was pointed out to me, I can't remember who, so I can't credit them, said it's also one of the, I think it's a filmmaker was telling me this. It's one of those genres that you can pitch it to, you can pitch it internationally.
Yes.
And it would sell because, horror is horror, blood is blood. It's not something that will get lost in translation. And I think you make a great point about just the concept itself has a huge fan base. It's not so much who's in it.
Right. And I think this is a good thing in terms of it's going to provide a lot of filmmakers with more opportunities and a lot of viewers with more choices.
And it has already.
It has already. I don't think that the death of the movie star is anything to lament or be sad about. But I do think it's interesting that I do think we're in a post movie star industry. And I think we have been for a long time.
I wonder, I thought of this just now. So yes, I agree for all the reasons we had just said, but it makes me think I know we all like to joke, or some people like to joke, that with the dawn of the internet, we all got dumber. I actually disagree. I think, yes, there's a lot of misinformation. I am not discounting that. But we can research things. I just feel like we, as the collective, we are waking up in a sense. And I think back in the day when there were less choices, you saw a movie star, you cared about what they ate for breakfast, where they went. Think of the Beatles even, like everybody just got obsessed. I don't think that exists as much anymore. Yeah. And I think it's just there's so many things to distract ourselves with.
Right.
And that part I actually think is good.
Yeah.
Can we still say something? Yes. Can we make political statements? Art has its necessary place, and I don't think that'll ever go away. And I think there will always be fans of the cinema, no matter what happens. And my friend and I were talking about there's organic food. You can go to the store and you can buy organic food, or you can buy cheap stuff for whatever reason. You might have a valid reason to buy the cheap stuff, but you still have a choice depending on your budget. Right. And I think that's what art is, don't you think?
Yeah. I mean, Steven Soderbergh said this thing 20 years ago. He made a movie called Bubble, which he did with non-actors.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
He did this twice.
He likes non-actors.
Well,
so I don't always agree with him.
Yeah. Well, it's an experiment. He did this in between
more than once though.
He did Bubble and The Girlfriend Experience.
Right.
Both of which had non-actors. But what was interesting about it, putting aside how he made the movie, this was 20 years ago, he did what was then called day and date, where it came out on a Friday and then it was on video on demand on a Tuesday. And so a lot of theaters wouldn't show it. This is pre-Netflix. Netflix was not making content at this point. And the movie the release plan got more publicity than the movie did itself. But he said this interesting thing, going back to what you were saying a second ago. Um, and this is somebody who makes movies for major studios, like the Ocean's movies. This is somebody who did this of his own volition because
Yeah.
he's experimental filmmaker. He always has been and continues to be as we're recording this. But he said this really interesting thing, which I want to tie into what you said a second ago. He said, I don't think this is going to change people going to theaters any more than takeout has affected people wanting to eat at restaurants.
Excellent point.
Yeah, I think sometimes you want takeout and sometimes you want to sit in a restaurant. And I think that's the movie theater experience. And I think that they've, the theaters have stepped up. It's all assigned seating. It's all reclined seating. They have better snacks. They have booze. Like they've upped
It's
their
an
game.
experience.
It's an experience, and I think that's a good thing. I think they're doing it from a panicked state of mind. But I do think if you go to the movies, it's a much more pleasurable experience on the whole if you can make the commitment to go.
Yes, I agree. It makes me think of coffee. Like, I'm a coffee drinker. I make coffee at home.
Right.
I even can make pretty good coffee at home, and I don't have a fancy machine.
Right.
So I imagine if I had one, it would even be better. But to get coffee at one of those lovely independent cafes, it's an experience.
Right. And sometimes you want that. Like maybe
Yeah.
once a week or whatever it is, or once every
Yeah.
2 weeks, you're like, I can do this at home. I want to do this. Yeah, I think we're, So, I think this is just an interesting time to look back. Well, not look back because we weren't alive during this, but I think just going into this, when I decided I'm going to do the 50s next, I wasn't thinking about what was going on now
in the world at the time
and
too.
when this connection was made for me. I'm really glad to be talking about this now,
Yeah.
like this decade now. So let's move on to All About Eve, but first some trivia and some stats.
Yes.
So Joseph L. Mankiewicz was the first and still only director to win Best Director and Best Screenplay back to back. The previous film was 1949's A Letter to Three Wives, but that did not win Best Picture. So this guy won Best Screenplay and Best Director back to back. Never been done before. I think that's cool. This stat's pretty amazing, and maybe you might even know this one. So Edith Head did the costumes. She has won the most Oscars ever with 8. She's also won the most Oscars for a woman. She also has the most nominations for a costume designer, 35 nominations. And she's the most nominated woman ever with nominations for 19 consecutive years, from 48 to 66, often with 2 nominations per year, because they used to divide in the 50s color and black and white.
I didn't know that.
So cinematography, there was a color cinematography Oscar, which one of our movies this year won.
I had
And
no
there was a
idea.
black and white, same thing with costumes.
Oh, interesting.
You're really seeing, if you look just the list of nominees, you're seeing color and black and white. 3 screenwriting Oscars, now we have 2. So you're really seeing the Oscars kind of figuring this out. Back to Edith Head. Her winning span goes from 1949 all the way to 1973. The last movie she won an Oscar for was The Sting, which is another Best Picture winner, which we'll talk about on the show. So, Edith Head is a name I see in every movie. She's done a ton of stuff for Hitchcock, a ton of stuff for everybody. She did the costumes for this movie.
And she's honored in The Incredibles.
Yes. Oh, thank you. I was just going to. She looks just like Edna Mode.
Yeah.
That's exact. Because if you look at a picture of Edith Head, particularly as she gets older, same haircut
And
the glasses. I don't know if she sounded that way, but yeah, I saw the picture of her and I'm like, Edna Mode.
Yeah.
It's not an accident, because what does Edna do? She designs costumes.
Yeah. I feel like I also heard somewhere else that she was indeed, that character was modeled after Edith Head.
Yeah. I mean, that look is pretty singular. Like, I don't even know what to call that haircut and the big glasses. And she was a short woman. And I remember my father asking me once, who's won the most Oscars? And I knew this 8 thing in my head because I looked it up years ago. And I said, oh, Edith Head has 8. He goes, oh, that's a lot. Like he was like that's an answer. Betty Davis fell in love with her co-star Gary Merrill during the shoot of this movie, and they married in July 1950, a few weeks after filming was completed. They adopted a baby girl who they named Margot.
Yes.
You knew that?
Well, there's a great book called All About Eve.
I haven't read it, but I've read that same author. I think his name is Sam Stagg.
I believe so. Yeah,
He wrote a similar book about Sunset Boulevard, which is going to come up a
oh,
lot.
I just rewatched that last night.
Oh, great. That's going to come up a lot in this podcast.
Yes.
This holds the record for the most female acting nominations in a single film with 4. Anne Baxter, Betty Davis for Best Actress, and Celeste Holm and Thelma Ritter for Best Supporting Actress. Also As of 2026, it shares the record for second most Oscar nominations, 14 with Titanic and La La Land. This record was beat this year by Sinners, which got 16.
Oh, I didn't know it had 16. Oh,
16,
good.
yes. So Sinners just this year has the most Oscar nominations of any movie in history.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Co-star Celeste Holmes spoke about her experience with Betty Davis on the first day of shooting. Quote, "I walked onto the set and on the first day and said good morning. And do you know her reply? She said, 'Oh shit, good manners.' I never spoke to her again, ever." Counterpoint to this, years later, Betty Davis said in an interview, "Filming All About Eve was a very happy experience. The only bitch in the cast was Celeste Holmes."
Yeah, talk about it being your own. What am I trying to say? Like you can have this. There could be this event, and two people have completely opposite.
I know. I kind of want to read the book you just plugged right now.
And even when they contacted Celeste Holmes, it said in the book to ask her about the experience. She was like mad about it.
Yeah,
many years later.
I mean, their chemistry on screen is great.
Oh, yeah.
So they seem like best friends. I mean, do you see the friction? But maybe that. Yeah. So that's interesting. Yeah, who knows? Three sides to every story. Margot Channing's famous cocktail dress was an Edith Head creation. To Head's horror, just as they were about to go film the cocktail party, she found the dress didn't quite fit Betty Davis in the shoulders. There was no time to fix the dress, but fortunately, Davis hit on the bright idea of simply slipping the dress off her shoulders. Amazing.
Yeah.
That's probably the most. We'll get to the famous line later, but that's probably the most iconic image of this movie.
Yes,
is her in this dress.
Mm-hmm.
It was Daryl F. Zanuck who decided to change the working title Best Performance to All About Eve after reading one of Addison DeWitt's lines in the opening narration of the script. I think that was a good change.
Oh, definitely.
The movie's line, "Fasten your seatbelts, it's going to be a bumpy night," was voted the number 9 movie quote by the American Film Institute. This blew my mind. Betty Davis filmed all her scenes in 16 days.
Oh, I didn't realize it was that short.
I looked up the shoot was pretty quick. I mean,
yeah.
That's still crazy. This is a stat that's actually come up before on this podcast when we covered Terms of Endearment. But here it is again, if you've never heard that episode. One of the only 5 films to receive 2 Academy Award nominations for Best Actress. In this instance, Anne Baxter and Betty Davis. The other 4 films are Suddenly Last Summer, for which Katharine Hepburn and Elizabeth Taylor were nominated. The Turning Point, for which Anne Bancroft and Shirley MacLaine were nominated. Terms of Endearment, for which MacLaine and Deborah Winger were nominated. And Thelma and Louise, for which Gina Davis and Susan Sarandon were nominated. With these 5 competitions, MacLaine is the only one to win out of any of these matchups for Terms of Endearment. So that was interesting. They haven't nominated 2 women. They actually haven't. We talked about this in our Amadeus episode. They won't really nominate 2 men in Best Actor anymore. This is something they just don't do. They will push one of them to supporting, lead actor, lead actress. We went into a bit of a deep dive on this in the Amadeus episode because F. Murray Abraham, who wins, is up against Tom Hulce. And we said in that episode that one of them would get pushed, fairly or not, to supporting actor. So interesting.
Yeah.
We're probably never going to see. It's going to be rare. We haven't seen it in 35 years. We're probably not going to see that again, maybe ever. It's interesting. This is the first of 4 films in 4 successive years that Thelma Ritter was nominated for the Best Supporting Actress Oscar. This film was followed by nominations for The Mating Season, With a Song in My Heart, and Pickup on South Street. And I'm going to editorialize here. Why the fuck she wasn't nominated for Rear Window in 1954 is astounding to me. She's amazing in that movie. We'll cover that in the 54 episode. Tied as the movie with the most Oscar nominations for acting with 5 apiece. The other movies in chronological order are Mrs. Miniver, From Here to Eternity, On the Waterfront, Peyton Place, Tom Jones, Bonnie and Clyde, The Godfather Part 2, and Network. So all those movies have 5 acting nominations. George Sanders told David Niven in 1937 that he intended to commit suicide when he got older. In 1972, he fulfilled his promise, leaving his note, "Dear world, I'm leaving because I am bored. I feel I have lived long enough. I'm leaving you with your worries in this sweet cesspool. Good luck." I'd heard...
What year was that he did that?
He killed himself in 1972. I'd heard the "Dear world, I'm leaving this world because I am bored," and it's hard not to hear George Sanders' voice when you're reading that. Sorry, that was a bit of a bummer. 2 more. At 2 hours and 18 minutes, it is number 62 in ascending length of Best Pictures. Number 63, if you count Sunrise, which we'll litigate if that counts in a later episode. It is number 78 on the box office list of Best Pictures with a worldwide gross of $8 million. So, I want to start here.
Yeah.
I think that I talked a second ago about like the pop culture imprint of this movie. There's one very famous line from this movie. I already quoted it. Fasten your seatbelts. It's going to be a bumpy night. I think people would know that line. Maybe if they wouldn't know, and they would know maybe even Betty Davis said it.
Yes.
They might not know this movie. So I think that's a line. I'd say like Casablanca level fame.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah, that's a line everybody knows if they don't know where they know it from. And again, they might know Betty Davis, or they might be able to, if they saw a picture of her, be like, oh yeah, that's the lady who says that line. I think that the basic story of this movie, and I want to get your take on this. I made like kind of a short list of movies where I think this basic story pops up in again, and there may be more. So what I mean is sort of a younger woman coming after an older woman, like whether it's an ingenue, whether it's, and these are the movies I came up with. These are in chronological order. Single white female, Showgirls, in all seriousness, Black Swan, Notes on a Scandal, and The Favorite. That wasn't chronological, but I fucked that up. But those are the movies. Do you agree with that assessment that those movies, I mean, Showgirls, and again, I'm not trying to be funny here. When Showgirls came out, that was like, oh, this is like all about Eve, but it's strippers. And
But it's
sleazy.
yeah.
But I do think that might be the
I actually
best.
saw it last year in Cinespia, the outdoor.
Oh, I saw it at the Academy Museum.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So, yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think in Showgirls, it's not as big of an age difference between the two
No,
of them.
they're much closer in age, but it's the same
still,
thing.
nonetheless. Yeah. I
mean,
agree.
Crystal Connors is Margot Channing. I mean, it's in terms of like she's at a level.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. There's not as much. I don't think that the Naomi Malone is as conniving as Eve Harrington. That she does have a moment or two, but she's not as
right. Eve Harrington is sociopathic.
Right.
Yeah.
I think that Naomi Malone is much more open to just coexisting. Like she only
Agreed.
wants her piece of it.
Agreed.
But I do think something like The Favorite, the Emma Stone character
100%.
is much more. So I just think this is like I don't know if this is the first one, meaning All About Eve, but it's definitely the most famous one, So I'm calling it number one, and as I discover,
I think it's safe to call it number one, at least of movies that had popularity.
Exactly. I mean, this was a huge hit.
Yeah.
It won a bunch of Oscars.
Yeah.
So this is definitely something that people know. Yeah. So okay. So you agree with that assessment. So speaking of Best Picture, this is something I've talked about. I've mentioned a couple times where a Best Picture winner is mentioned in another Best Picture winner. That doesn't happen here, but something happens here that I think is even more rare. The first line of narration we hear, Addison says something. He makes a swipe at the Oscars.
Oh yeah.
I didn't write down the exact quote, but I wrote down, is this the only swipe at the Oscars in a Best Picture winner? I mean, I'm asking that somewhat rhetorically, unless you could think of one. I mean, it's just such a not weird, it's just such a funny thing.
No, I don't think that they say anything about the Oscars. I think Sunset Boulevard comments on
right, but Sunset Boulevard didn't win.
The horrors of Hollywood, right?
Right.
Oh, you're
if Sunset
right.
Boulevard
right.
had won, that would be a straight swap because they'd make one or two jokes about the Oscars.
Right.
You even see an Oscar in Sunset Boulevard.
Right.
It's on when he pitches the movie, it's on the back of the producers. But I'm talking big. It's just like a swipe, and I think it's great, and it's something Addison DeWitt would say. I just thought that was a funny line. I mean,
it's a hilarious line. It opens the entire movie, and it's.
I really like So let's talk about the movie. I love the structure of this movie.
Mm-hmm.
I love the freeze frame and how they sort of make that the sort of the bookend to this movie.
Yeah.
And I love how we're seeing it from 3 or 4 different points of view. We're seeing it through. I mean, Karen almost seems to be. Pound for pound, I wonder if like Karen is the person we're with the most in a weird way.
I think we are, or the one we feel for.
Yes, well, she's definitely probably.
It's hard. It's hard to feel for Margot a lot of the movie.
Yeah.
You do, but it's also kind of she makes it hard.
Yeah.
But I think Karen. I feel for Karen because she's just so. She's the wife of the playwright. That's her entire, purpose. And then there's this sort of. I think this movie. I don't like to use the word perfect, but I do think it's close to it. If you have to use an adjective like that.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing that always kind of and rewatching it because I saw it with my partner who had never seen it and it was really fun and agreed it's a great film.
Oh, you watched it with her?
I watched it with her.
Oh, that's great.
And she loved it.
Great.
The only thing that was there's a few things that are just of the time, of women. That's another story. But
Yeah.
it's more of like the moment where I don't know if you wanna go chronological in the movie or if it
Go wherever
doesn't
you want to
matter.
go. We can go
It's
chronologically.
the moment where Karen's like, "Oh, I suppose he got tired of me by now," talking about her husband, and then he because he's rehearsing Ann Baxter's character he's rehearsing Eve in that play.
Right.
He leaves at like 3 a.m. or something to go to her because she's crying, and you see her with her roommate, so they planned the whole thing.
Right. Yeah.
What actually happened, I don't think is ever clear.
Oh, okay. So let's go. Yeah, we're jumping around, but that's fine. So your question is, did Lloyd sleep with Eve?
Yeah, I don't know that he did.
Well, she seems to think. I mean, we're right at the end, but fuck it.
She's like, well, he'll leave her for me, and then Addison Rae is like, no, if he leaves her, it's not going to be for you.
Yeah, it's that part of it is a little ambiguous because
Hays Code in all those ways.
what's that? No,
Because
I don't think it's a Hays Code thing because you could show. I mean, we're a couple years into film noir. I don't think this movie is film noir, but I think that Eve is a femme fatale, just
100%.
minus the fatale. She doesn't actually kill or hurt anybody
Right,
physically,
right.
but Eve would definitely be at home with like Barbara Stanwyck and Double Indemnity.
Yeah.
She doesn't actually kill anybody.
Right.
But you could see, you know,
Yeah.
you could see her injuring someone like physically, like that scene in Show. I'm not to make this about Showgirls. I'm not trying to be a wise guy, but like, in Showgirls where like that other dancer throws the pearls on so that Gina Gershon will break her leg. Like you could definitely see Eve doing that. You could definitely see her like.
Well, she does a lot of damage. She does a lot of psychological and emotional damage.
Right, but I'm saying like I'm talking like a femme fatale is like murders people or like gets someone to murder people. I'm saying like she's like just one notch. I think she's a sociopath. I think that's like a perfect.
I think to me it's like a nuanced noir. If that's even a term, and it's not.
No, I think
it should
make
be.
it a term. I think I think it is a nuanced noir because I wrote down at one point, just backtracking a little bit, where she's in the ladies' room with Karen, and she's like. And Karen kind of falls and says, like, whatever you need. And then she's like, well, I want you to get me that part.
Yeah.
Or I'm going to tell everybody that what you did to Margot. And then Karen says, you do all that for a part in a play. And then Eve says, I do much more for a part that good. And I believe her. So I think that, she's I think nuanced noir definitely applies to the Eve character. But going back to your question, I don't think they would, for Hays Code reasons, not show a man cheating on his wife because we're already like we've seen Double Indemnity, we've seen where a woman cheats on her husband. So I think it's maybe we're supposed to think that Lloyd cheated, and then
I think we are, and then you find out he probably didn't. But
I guess he didn't.
It's ambiguous.
It's ambiguous because we do see her come on to what's his Bill. We do see her come on to Bill. And Bill's like, it's a fumble pass. Like, don't worry about it. Like, Bill's like, doesn't get angry.
His
doesn't like discipline
funny.
her. It's like, but I think it's like Bill's been in that position a million times.
Right,
He's had a million young women come on to him and he knows how to handle it.
Yeah.
And he doesn't make a thing of it.
Yeah.
And he probably doesn't tell Margot about it.
Right.
That doesn't matter. And they don't show us that scene with Lloyd. Meaning like, so they would
True.
So I think it is, I think it's just as a viewer so that when we get to the end and she says like you were saying a second ago, like, oh, well, Lloyd's going to leave his wife. And Addison's like, no. I think we're supposed to be in the same position of like, oh, wait, is this happening? Because you do see the temptation. You do see how she does manipulate Lloyd and then Karen calls him out. But then I feel like right away he's like, oh, yeah, you're right. Like, I feel like it's like they have this very healthy, like they fight about it. And then at the end, they're like, cool.
Yeah.
Which I think was interesting. It's like it's like you see this movie's about like 3 or 4 different relationships.
Yeah.
And you see how they're tested by Eve and how they're ultimately strong enough to survive it. Now, I think with Bill and Margot, that relationship was already having problems before Eve. She's really testing it. But you see Bill call her out. Like, you're being childish. I love you, but you're being a fucking asshole and you need to grow up. And that's what eventually happens. Like, Margot
she does change.
She just changes and just sort of like matures out of this conflict.
Yeah.
And then I think it shifts. And then that's sort of the problem is that like Eve, when she says, okay, I don't want to do the play anymore. And Karen starts laughing. It's like, that's resolved.
Yeah.
Which I think is a great scene because I think another movie would keep that ball in the air so much longer.
Yeah. Well, I also think she had been grappling with, she she's 40, heaven forfend, and she's playing all these really young ingenues, and it's like,
Yeah.
at what point of course, the question comes up, can't he just write parts for older women? I guess he can't.
Well,
Uh,
yeah.
that's another well, neither can Hollywood, let's face it, or rarely. But, yeah,
But this is a part for a 40-year-old woman, though. And I think Betty Davis was actually 40.
she was 40, and actually Sunset Boulevard, Gloria Swanson was 50.
No,
Or
and it's really
49, 50,
no,
something like
but
that.
no, she was. They're both playing their age, and
Yeah.
that's a fascinating.
It is
We'll
fascinating.
get into Sunset Boulevard in a bit, but it is fascinating that they're playing exactly because in the case of Sunset Boulevard, Billy Wilder wanted a silent film actress who didn't have a career anymore, so he picked somebody like Gloria Swanson was in movies directed by Eric von Stroheim, who plays Max, and that happened to her. Now she
Mhm.
didn't go insane. But she did have that
No,
experience.
she just pivoted, I think, in her life. She just kinda had a healthier pivot.
Right, but that did
if I
happen
read-
to her. She
Yeah,
was a
yes,
casualty.
yes.
I mean, we see
She didn't make it in talkies.
right, but
Yeah.
a lot that happened to a lot of actors. Yes, so yeah, I think it's interesting that we see these two marriages that are really, really tested because of Eve and because of Eve's actions,
Mhm.
and both these relationships survive and even get stronger. I mean, I think that Eve, in a fucked up way, was the best thing that could have happened to Margot and Bill, because if it wasn't Eve, it was going to be something else. Because
Oh, yes, yeah.
Margot is just not. I mean, Margot's just not great. When we meet her, she's not nice to Birdie. I don't think she's like toxic in that she's like throwing things. She's just very childish.
Yeah, yeah.
And especially, and I think the fact that she's 40, it's even more glaringly childish. I think
Yes, yeah,
if she
yeah.
were Ann Baxter's age,
It's not cute
it would-
anymore.
It would be, yeah, it might seem
Yeah.
cute. It might be like, oh, well, she's 25, whatever. I don't know how old Ann Baxter was, but like, it would be sort of harder to spot. But it's like extra tacky on a woman who's middle aged or early
Mhm.
middle aged, and I
Yeah.
think that's the point.
Yeah, yeah,
I think that's
yeah.
why Mankiewicz wrote this for somebody in this age range.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
And I think, yeah, because that scene at the cocktail party, I mean, the cocktail party is sort of like the longest scene in this movie.
Yeah.
And it's like kind of like the most pivotal scene. It's just, it goes on for so long and there's so many stories going on within it.
Mhm.
Marilyn Monroe shows up. We'll talk about her.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, I think that it's fascinating just how it focuses on those two marriages and then Addison and Eve, which is sort of burgeoning. That's not a marriage, but it ends up being sort of this. We'll get there when we get there. Sort of this hellacious,
Yeah,
conglomerate.
yeah. Yeah.
But I love the way this movie is structured. How we're starting at this awards show,
Mhm.
and we're meeting Addison. We're meeting all the characters, and I think that's. VO is such a tricky thing, but the movie is kind
But
of
it does it well.
does it well, and Sunset Boulevard also does it well.
Yes,
I think
yes,
that,
you're
I
right.
think that VO,
It is tricky.
people say, "Oh, never use voiceover
I don't
narration."
think you can say that. Yeah.
It's yeah, and I can name so many movies that do it well, and I think it's just you can't use it if it's bad.
Isn't that the rule with everything? Just don't
Right,
do
but
it badly. Whatever
but
it is.
VO has there's so many strikes against it because it's always looked at as lazy,
Mhm.
and when it's done well, as it's done well here, it isn't telling us like I sat down in a chair and had a beer. Like, well, we can see that. It's telling us things that could not be said, that could not be expressed, or else that'd be bad dialogue. If the characters by themselves or they can't confide, they can't confide something into someone. It's telling us what's going on, and I think when it's done badly, it just feels unnecessary. It's like Jen and I are sitting at a table and we're talking, and it's like, well, we can see that.
Yeah.
And I've seen even good movies with bad VO where it's just
sure.
unnecessary. And a
Mhm.
lot of times it's a studio note, like, well, we need to clarify this. Let's have VO. So it's just very maligned, but we're in kind of a golden age of it, So I want to just sort of like stand for VO because we're gonna, it's in this, it's in Sunset Boulevard. It's gonna be in a lot of movies we're covering this season in the 50s. And it's something it's rare now, but we still see it. Another fantastic example of VO is Election
Oh, okay.
with Matthew
Yeah,
Broderick,
God,
and because that's a
been
movie.
ages.
Yeah, that's a movie where
Is
the
that the 90s?
99.
Okay.
That's a movie where those characters have no one to speak to about their feelings, except for the audience, and I
Mhm.
think that's where it's useful. And I think that this movie, particularly the Karen character, and I don't feel like we hear a lot of VO once the movie gets started. I feel like we're changing perspectives a lot. Like we're seeing Karen on her own, we're seeing Margot on her own, we're seeing Eve on her. Well, actually, we never really see Eve on her own because Eve is like,
Yeah, I guess we don't see her on
If
her own.
if we saw Eve on her own, it probably would be a much different movie. We would know what
I
conniving.
do think, even though I think the voiceover is done really well, I don't know there needs to be as much of it in the beginning. I think it could have just been shorter. Now that you're saying that, and I say that because
Yeah,
everybody is such a strong actor that when you pan to them, their reaction to Eve
sure,
is 100% clear how they feel.
exactly. Yeah, I
So
mean, it's probably I mean,
snipped a little bit,
sure.
maybe.
I mean, I think that's just this is a 76-year-old movie. I think it's just a sensibility thing.
I
Like,
do. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
I think it's
I
something,
do.
it's like that second to last scene in Psycho where the psychiatrist explains everything. You don't need it, but I understand why in 1960 Hitchcock thought you did need it.
Sure.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I think you're right, but we may be putting a modern sensibility on something that's 7.5 decades old.
Right, and a modern sensibility on a lot of things. I mean, like when Margot says, "I now am what I'm meant to be," which is, what's his face's husband? I mean, wife.
Oh,
I am
Bill's
now
wife.
Bill's
Sure.
wife. I am now Bill's wife, and
Right.
that's what I'm meant to be. And I think it's speaking to another issue of just women working,
Sure.
especially back then, right?
Yeah.
Because you're talking post-World War II,
Yeah.
women had taken over the jobs, then the men came home, they were ousted from it.
Yeah.
Yes, this is different because she is an actor, and yet, is it? Because the idea is, why are you still playing these young women?
Right.
You're older, you should be married, you should settle down. No
Yeah.
one seems to think she could just play older women's parts.
Yeah, it's a bit of a
And maybe that's a modern sensibility, and
I think it is, but I think
own that.
it's fair to call it out. I mean, I think this movie, I think Joseph Mankiewicz writes women really well,
Mhm.
particularly in this movie. And
I agree with you.
This has a lot of these women are nominated. I think every female in this movie is nominated for an Oscar, and I think that these characters are really rich and really feel like people that you know. Maybe not literally, but I mean, but everybody knows. We've experienced, even if you're not in show business, it's like we all know a Margot, we all know an
Oh,
Eve, we know a
definitely.
Karen.
Yeah.
I'm saying a Karen because
A Karen,
has
not in
Karen's not a Karen.
Yeah.
But
that type. Yeah.
or Birdie, like
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, I guess my one criticism of this movie is I feel like, and maybe this is not a fair criticism, Birdie gets the hook kind of early. I kind of missed her, but maybe that's sort of a function of the plot because like if she were around more. Because she's the first one who's like, I don't like this girl, Eve. Like she's the first
from
one
the beginning.
from the beginning.
Yeah.
She's like the one who's like, I feel like she almost knows that story's bullshit that she tells because she makes that comment about like, boy, you got everything but the
And she was a
Rottweilers.
vaudevillian actor and knew Margot from those days, right? And then
Right.
Margot got more famous, so then she ended up working for Margot.
Right.
Isn't that their backstory?
I think so. I think she might even be older than Margot, but she
I
definitely
think
is a
she's
vaudevillian.
older. Yeah.
Yeah,
but
she's definitely somebody who, because she said I never played Fort Sumter, and yeah, so she's an actor and she knows. So like, I almost
I think
wonder.
she can smell the bullshit
I think
right
she
away.
can smell the bullshit right away because she makes that joke and then Margot jumps down her throat and she gets kind of offended, but then she doesn't let up because later on she's like, yeah, this girl's like studying you, and Margot
Yeah.
doesn't listen. And I just think it's kind of strange that like Birdie kind of just gets the hook. We don't see her past the first like act
Because
of the movie.
she's too smart. Maybe if she was around, everyone would wonder why people aren't listening to her.
And I get it. I just think that like there's no. I guess I wanted one line or a scene of Birdie quitting or taking off. It just seemed like
Oh yes, like she herself removes herself because she can't
whatever.
deal
Just one
or
scene
something.
of like Birdie getting. I don't know, like her saying. I don't know. It's a small thing, but
I do think it's interesting, and I suppose this happens all the time. I do think it's interesting that everybody just kind of wants to help Eve
yeah,
initially, like the idea of the helpless young girl. And do you think part of it, what I think is interesting casting wise, if I can bring this up, because, Betty Davis talked about this, and it was talked about rather rudely of her, that she's not Hollywood movie star beautiful.
No.
Right? And neither is Ann Baxter.
you don't think?
Well, she's cute.
Yeah.
But I mean, she's not Grace Kelly. Let's put it that
No,
way. If
no,
it was
no.
Grace Kelly, it would be a little. And I only say that because I like that. I like that because
Yeah.
it's showing that the both of them, Betty Davis was known because she was a damn good actor. That
Absolutely.
is why.
Yeah.
It wasn't pretty face we're going to throw in movies and
No.
hope for the best, which I think is what happened a lot.
Yeah.
Right. And there's something about Eve where it's like she has to study, she has to come up with the whole thing, she has to be charming, because it wouldn't necessarily just be handed to her. And I wonder if the idea is because she has such a passion for it and they want to help her because they
Yeah.
can't believe she's been there. Like Karen couldn't believe she's been there every single performance.
Yeah, it's interesting. Well, that's also fascinating. I want to take the Betty Davis part first.
Yeah.
Is because as you were saying that, and that is something that I've read, is Betty Davis, because I've said on this show, and maybe I'm not giving proper credit, is Betty Davis like the first Dustin Hoffman? What I mean is like somebody becoming a star by pure virtue of her talent. Like The Graduate's a big movie because
Yeah.
it's a leading man. He gets the part over Redford. It's a leading man who looks like the rest of us, who's not handsome.
He doesn't look like
and-
Redford. Yeah, yeah.
Right. And his entire career is this guy's a great actor. Even Daniel Day-Lewis, best actor ever, is very, very handsome.
Yes.
Daniel Day-Lewis, if he were a terrible actor, would be the lead. He'd be a romantic lead because he's so handsome.
Right.
But Hoffman and then Nicholson, Pacino, De Niro after him, Duvall even, those are guys who became movie stars because they were really, really good actors. Is she patient zero of that?
That is such a great
'Cause
question.
I've never thought about that. I've always thought about with men. I've never thought about women.
Are you saying is she patient zero for women of this?
No, men
Or
or
just
women.
in
Just
general?
an actor who becomes famous, who's not
Who's just
traditionally,
good,
who's
yeah.
just by pure virtue of she's
I
such
mean,
a great actor.
Yeah, I hear you. I think it's a great thing to ponder. I think of her era, probably yes.
Yeah.
But I wonder though, because in terms of just silent films, like there were actresses who just had something on screen, but they weren't necessarily
Right.
raving beauties on their own.
might be
I would
somebody
put Mary
very-
Pickford in that category,
Yeah.
really something on screen, ushered us into this whole age of
Right.
Hollywood. But she was known as America's sweetheart, right? Like she wasn't exactly like, oh my God, unattainable,
Right.
beautiful.
Yeah, I think Mary Pickford's like a girl next door, and
Yes,
Betty Davis, even when she was
yes.
younger, was never that. I mean, you know what's interesting, and you see it in this movie too. Betty Davis to me looks a lot, especially around the eyes, like Susan Sarandon.
Yes.
I always
well,
thought
that's
that
why she played her, right? Later on in a show, she
Oh,
played her.
right, the Ryan Murphy
And she
thing.
did a great job.
Yeah, she looks so much like her.
Yeah. Her eyes.
Yeah,
her
I think
eyes.
like around the eyes, and in this movie, every movie I've ever seen it around, I always think like, oh, I could see like
Mhm.
Susan Sarandon, young or old, like now or
And Susan Sarandon is definitely very attractive.
No, I think
It's-
Susan
it's-
Sarandon was. I'm not comparing them in that way. Susan
Yeah.
Sarandon was definitely thought of like, oh, this chick's hot. And
Yeah,
then,
yeah.
and then, oh, she can act too.
Yeah.
She had that more traditional track of, oh, she's really beautiful and sexy, and then, oh, she's a really good actor too. And then as she got older, that became she was a good enough actress that she still had a career, you know.
It's
so
such a good, maybe she's sort of like that. And I actually would have to really think.
yeah,
who-
it's
who
not a fair
else
question
now.
to throw to you. I'm just wondering I'm wondering if Betty Davis at least precedes Dustin Hoffman. I'll stick with him
Sure.
as somebody who just by pure virtue of their talent became a movie star. There was no, oh, I saw her on the corner sipping a soda and thought, you know,
Right.
like
You don't hear
um,
those stories about them. Yeah. I
yeah,
agree.
there's not that thing. And look, it's instructive that who pops up in this movie, Marilyn Monroe. Not her first movie, but her first movie comes out the same year. Asphalt Jungle comes out 6 months earlier.
Yeah.
It's a slightly bigger part, but not really. But it's the same thing where it's just like she walks in, it's like, oh, who is that? I think it's very, very interesting.
I do.
that
Me too.
The biggest movie star of the decade, which is her, Marilyn Monroe, the most famous movie star of the decade, the biggest icon of the decade. It's her, Grace Kelly, but I think it's really Marilyn Monroe. When you think of the 50s, you think of 7-Year Itch, her skirt getting blown up.
Yeah.
I mean, that is one of 2 or 3
and
of the
Audrey Hepburn, no?
Audrey Hepburn, absolutely.
Yeah,
But-
yeah.
Okay,
but I see your
top
point.
2 or 3.
Yes,
if,
yes.
if you like drive around Hollywood and you see like the Wax Museum and stuff,
It's
you are
Marilyn.
seeing Marilyn, and she's having a real moment now. There's an exhibit of her at the. Audrey Hepburn is definitely in the mix, but I still think Marilyn Monroe, as far as iconography,
Yeah.
is the 50s.
Yes.
At least for women.
I agree.
Brando for men, Marilyn Monroe for women. Just
Yeah.
again, just like those cheesy posters of like,
yeah.
you know, like everybody, you know, with that 7-Year Itch image of her skirt getting blown up by the subway.
Right.
This isn't a stat, has to be the most iconic image of this decade. I'm not saying it's the best movie. The movie's
Right,
just
right,
okay,
right,
in fact.
right.
But if you were to ask somebody, what do you think of when you think of the 50s? That image is coming up.
That
in the
image
first.
is one of them. Yeah.
So
yeah.
I think it's really interesting and prophetic that She has a small part in this movie, and she's coming into this
And she's
cocktail
well
bar.
cast. I mean, she plays
Yeah.
she plays that actress that it is alluded, it's not even alluded. It's
Yeah.
heavily, heavily suggested that
Yes.
she's going to get somewhere
Right.
by sleeping
Right.
with whomever.
Right.
Yeah.
And there's always that girl at that party,
Always.
you know, and
And Addison DeWitt comments, "Oh, I got you, girl. Don't
Yeah.
worry. You're gonna have somebody else you can like
exactly.
chat up." You know.
So there's that girl's always at that party, and I'm using the word girl very intentionally
Yeah, yeah.
because she's very young. I don't know. I think Marilyn Monroe was early 20s here. I don't know exactly how old she
She was born, I believe, in 26 or 27.
So she'd be
yeah.
23,
24.
Let's call it 23. Let's
Yeah.
say they shot this in 49. So she's like 23. So not a stretch. Yeah. And again, she's also 6 months earlier, the same year, in a movie called The Asphalt Jungle, where she plays, you know, the paramour of a much older man. And that movie, it's the same thing where it's just like, oh my God, who's this babe? You know?
yeah.
And so it's really interesting how this is where it starts for her.
Yeah, yeah.
This 1-2 punch. But yes, I think that's interesting also. And Margot, you know, is sort of dismissive of the Marilyn Monroe character. She's much more upset about what's going on with Eve, because it's like Eve is sort of like, you know, it's like the spectrum. It's like, well, we know that from the next day that Marilyn Monroe's a terrible actress because they say, oh, well, she couldn't even get through the lines, and Margot's a great actress, but Eve's somewhere in the middle where it's like she's kind of coming up. So it's like, I'm wondering if he's trying to paint like kind of a spectrum. Not that that's the only 3 points on it. It's just like,
But I agree with you. Yeah.
I think it's very pointed that like she's not only looking like Marilyn Monroe, but also just
And
like,
then
oh, she's a terrible actress. So she's no threat to Margot.
And she's not, especially as a stage actress, because Addison DeWitt says something like, "Oh, honey, television is a series of auditions," or something. It's only auditions, or something like that.
You could, I think her name is Caswell. You could
Yes,
imagine
Miss Caswell.
You can imagine her going to LA and probably getting a studio contract, and then whatever happens, which is what happened to Marilyn Monroe.
Right.
And a lot of other, I mean, there's a whole, Karina Longworth has this incredible series called Dead Blondes.
Oh, yeah. I listened to every episode. Yeah.
Marilyn Monroe being the most famous of it, but there's like, I think 8 or 10 women, some of which I've heard of, some of which I hadn't, like Carol Landis I'd never heard of. But they all had a similar experience, except that Marilyn Monroe, obviously for a short time, was a big movie star, was a millionaire, and all the other stuff. So yeah, I think this movie's very vocal and nakedly about aging and women's fear of aging and what's my place and the person coming up behind me. I mean, look, the last image of this movie is an even younger girl coming up behind Eve, and she has no idea.
And the mirrors.
It's a beautiful image.
Yeah,
I mean, this movie's well shot, but like it's not very flashy. But that last shot of this movie is gorgeous. And it's one of those things. It's like, this is telling us everything, and Eve has no idea. Like Eve says,
like Margot had no idea.
Well, like Eve says, like,
initially,
right? Eve says like the door rings, like go get the door. So it's like, oh, this girl's in, and Eve can't see it coming. Like Margot couldn't see it coming, and I don't get the impression that Margot was an Eve when she was younger. I don't think it's like this.
I don't think so either.
Yeah,
no.
I feel like Margot, probably like Betty Davis herself, just scrapped and fought, and because Betty Davis was very famous for pushing. You know, she didn't work. She was suspended by, I think, Warner Brothers because she was like wouldn't do the movies they were giving her. You know, studio contract. She's like, this movie sucks, I'm not doing it, and she was suspended. And she was the only one back then, man or woman, who raised her hand and said, like, yeah, I don't want to do this movie. This movie's stupid.
Yeah.
Like, you know, and look, great movies came out of the studios. Casablanca is a studio movie, studio system. You were assigned to do that movie, but that's you know, that's sort of an exception, or not, maybe not a total exception. So
yeah, I agree.
I mean, so he's definitely writing to Betty Davis. I don't know if he wrote it for her, but like he's definitely writing a character that you could see what attracted her to it, because she probably related to it wholeheartedly.
Yeah, and the whole stage actress thing too, because she did a lot of stage work as well.
Yeah, I mean, you could. It's interesting because we have this. Why couldn't this movie? And this isn't a note I have, but it takes a lot of swipes at Hollywood, which I think is funny because it's a Hollywood movie. Would this same story not work if Margot was a movie actress?
I was just wondering if you were going to ask that.
I'm not suggesting that it would. I mean, I guess my question is, why does this have to be on stage? I think it does, but I don't know why.
I honestly think it's that. I think that as much as Hollywood thinks it likes to make fun of itself, it actually really doesn't at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And I think that because this is making fun of stage, that it's somehow okay. And I also wonder, because if you want to, I don't know if you want to get to Sunset Boulevard, and the reason I like to compare those
Yeah, we
two,
can compare.
right, is because older woman, past her prime,
Yeah.
was known for being one thing, is really not as much anymore. You know,
These
and
movies are in such
Hollywood.
conversation with each other.
Yeah.
It's crazy they came out the same year.
It's really crazy. And
Yeah.
she's 40 and Gloria Swanson's
50,
50.
yeah.
And I mean, Sunset Boulevard is a great example of being in an age where everything has changed and she refuses to pivot and change with it, right?
Yeah.
She just wants to stay the way she is and expects everybody else to be okay with it.
Right.
But the reason, I think there's a few reasons, and I just rewatched Sunset Boulevard as I mentioned.
Right.
The reason I genuinely do think All About Eve is a better film. Even though I like Sunset Boulevard,
Sure.
I feel like the characters, maybe it's that whole nuanced noir term that we just coined.
Right.
They just seem more accessible. They seem more real. They seem more contemplative. And in Sunset Boulevard, there's quite a lot of voiceover, and the voiceover is done in such a noir way
Right.
that I find it a lot harder to feel for.
Well, yeah,
the
Sunset
dude-
Boulevard has
the
I mean,
dude.
the opening of the movie, which is incredible, is
It
our
is a
main
cool
character is
opening.
fucking dead.
Yeah,
So we
that's
know
a
this
cool
guy
opening.
gets killed. So I think so. There's a murder. There's at least one murder in that movie, which puts it in.
Noir.
Yeah, which puts it in. Nothing. What I like about this movie is that the tension level is the same, but no one's in mortal danger.
Right.
Like the worst thing that's going to happen in this movie is relationships are going to get fractured or
Right.
careers going to fall apart.
And a car will get stalled and
Right.
you can't make a performance.
Nobody is
Yeah.
in mortal danger, which is why I think the nuanced noir thing is like, I think Eve is dangerous, is a sociopath, but she's not a psychopath. And I think like, she's not, I'll shoot fish in a barrel. She's not Glenn Close in Fatal Attraction.
Right.
Who's mentally ill and becomes dangerous to other people. She starts to lash out at other people. I'm only making the comparison in terms of like,
Yeah.
I think she's a sociopath and maybe one of the best examples we've had of one. But yeah, I think it's interesting that these two movies happen at the same time.
Very
And there's a great book called Oscar Wars. I can't remember the author's name, but there's an entire chapter dedicated to the best actress race of this year and what an insane race that was in terms of just particularly Davis versus Swanson, just the titanic impact of those performances, how they fell personally. We've already talked about they were playing the ages. They were going through similar things.
Yeah.
Even though Gloria Swanson's character is obviously mentally ill and delusional and then ultimately violent. But it's just crazy that these two things happen at the same time. I don't want to make this too much about Sunset Boulevard, but I do think it's interesting, maybe going back to my thesis here, that like Hollywood's in this time of change. And I think there's this existential threat against it. And it's showing up in this movie about the theater, but it's not an existential threat about how theater is changing. It's about like, I'm aging out of these roles.
Right.
And I think you brought up a good point where Margot should say to Lloyd,
write me
a character that's my age. You write your new plays about an ingenue. And when you see Margot in the sort of, I know she was in a movie called Jezebel, like the Jezebel makeup.
Yeah.
She does look a little silly. When you see Eve in it, you're like, yeah, that is a better fit. Doesn't mean that Eve's a better actress.
Right. Yeah.
But I think that, it isn't like you're seeing Margot under this delusion that she's younger. Because like Sunset Boulevard has this line where William Holden says, "You're a woman of 50. There's nothing tragic about being a woman of 50 unless you try to be 25.
Yeah.
I don't know that we see Margot do that.
No. If
Margot
anything,
seems- yeah.
if anything, she's like a mere 7 or 8 years older than
Bill.
Than
He's 8
Bill.
years older.
Yeah.
That's her hang up, is that am I too old for this guy?
Yeah,
Not
it's
about am I
so
too old to
funny.
be an actress.
Yeah, it's more that and she had a very successful career, and I think there's something about Margot where she's just trying to figure out her next chapter.
Right.
And I think if she were born later, that character would have an easier time
Yeah.
figuring out the next chapter.
Exactly. I mean, you could definitely look at this movie with hindsight and see options for her that she couldn't see that weren't available to her. So I think it's fascinating. I don't think you could. I mean, nobody should remake this movie, but I don't think
No,
you
they
could.
really shouldn't.
You really couldn't remake this movie anyway because, I say this a lot. Like Margot, I mean, there would be better roles for her on stage, but she could also produce her own stuff, and she might be the second or third lead on a big streaming series and win a rack of Emmys. I talk a lot about, and this is more in our 2000s episode, even the 80s one, 2000s and 80s seasons. I talk a lot about how certain women disappeared when they aged out of like the sexy roles. And if there had been streaming back then, like Linda Fiorentino is the one I went to, I think in my very first episode, I feel like she could be on a streaming series now and be doing really well, have like a rack of Emmys.
Well, like Michelle Pfeiffer.
Yeah, Michelle Pfeiffer's doing that right now. She's on a new streaming.
More than one show.
Yeah.
She has more than one show, and
Right.
she's doing great, and she's in her 60s.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing, but that wasn't around for Betty Davis.
No.
And it wasn't around even for Kathleen Turner.
I mean, Betty Davis herself in an interview in the 70s said something about writers and basically saying that they're male, and as though that's just a fact of life and we all know it and we all move on. Like the concept of a woman writing for a woman was
Right.
not even something she could conceive.
Right, but she's of that generation. I mean,
Yeah.
and if she were maybe 20 years younger, then she could have been in that era where somebody like a Tarantino could have put her in a movie. I'm not saying I need to see her like blowing heads up, but like
Right.
she
Yeah.
there was she missed that wave of like, she missed basically like the movie brats generation who were like putting,
Yes.
it was mainly men, but I mean, she missed that generation of like actors like that who saw her as a kid who would like kill to put her in like even a small
Yeah.
part in something.
Yeah,
They couldn't
yeah.
revive her career. But I mean,
And
Betty Davis did it
she
right.
did Whatever Happened to Baby Jane with Joan Crawford, which
Right.
I think was 1960. Am I wrong?
62.
62. Okay, so that's
And that's kind of a cousin
different
of this
series.
movie.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a cousin.
Yeah.
And I think that she did find. So Betty Davis found something, but
Yes.
as far as Margot,
Right.
yeah, and also it's just so interesting because there's always been parts for, well, not a ton maybe, but there's always been parts for theater's more forgiving in that way.
Yeah.
But then again, she made her entire bread and butter playing ingenues. That was her thing.
Yeah. It's a little sad, I think, to your point that you made a little bit ago, that it seems like she's over her thing with Eve, which is healthy, but she seems to be like, okay, I'm just going to be your wife now.
Yeah,
And she seems to be hanging up her spurs, and it's like you're
what-
it's like you're 40.
Yeah, like you've
like
got
I understand.
more in ya.
Like Lloyd's the one who's got to go. In terms of like meaning like if he's not going to write parts for you, then you got to find another playwright.
Find another playwright. Why does it have? Who cares if
Like,
Karen's
she
your
could-
best friend?
I mean, even in 1950, couldn't Margot have start a production company and
Yes.
say like,
Well, yes,
I mean,
Marilyn Monroe did.
Yeah.
Marilyn Monroe started one. Yeah, Margot
that's-
Channing could have started a production. Exactly.
yeah. And I just like, why didn't she? I mean, and it's like she could have.
But she didn't like movies, right? Didn't
No, I'm
she
talking about
make-
for theater. I'm talking like, couldn't she have found a new
Oh.
playwright? Couldn't Margot
Well,
have found a new playwright?
It started a contest, started a
Yeah.
whatever. Oh my God, have Karen involved. Karen could have spearheaded it.
Couldn't she have just
could have
gone-
given her something to do.
Couldn't she have like taken a train to Yale and gone to like the
Seriously.
playwrights?
There's so many. Instead of, I guess I'm just a wife now, and that's
Yeah.
great. Like what?
Yeah, that is one of the few sort of like false notes. Not even a false note, because I think it is. It's not a false note like it's badly written. I think it is. I kind of want to catch myself here. I think it's a little bit of that hasn't aged well.
It hasn't aged well. Right. That's like that's the thing. Other than that, though, I have to say the film is fabulous.
Yes.
I loved watching it again. I agree everything what you said. The way it's shot,
Yeah.
the way he chooses to show scenes is really clever. It's
Yeah.
something I don't think we've really seen.
Yeah, I love
prior.
so there's a great visual in this movie, which again, I think this movie's, because it's so much dialogue, so much great dialogue.
Yes.
It's easy to dismiss it visually. I think there's a great visual in this movie. It's pretty early on where Eve is working for Margot and she's like standing, she's looking at the curtain and the curtain keeps going down and like the cast is bowing and then like they keep they keep breaking away from Margot, and then when Margot takes her final solo curtain call and you hear them cheering, and you just see how thirsty Eve is, like the look on Anne Baxter's
Yes,
face.
yeah,
I feel like
yeah.
we haven't really talked about Anne Baxter, and I really want
Oh,
to.
yeah,
So she's such a big component of this because I think, you know, I don't remember when the first time I saw this was. It was probably like 14 or 13 or 14, like around there. I know
Oh, that young.
yeah, I'd already
Okay.
seen Sunset Boulevard. I remember I watched this on, I think it was TCM. Um, and I remember I hadn't seen it a ton, but I'd seen it a few times. And I liked it, but I don't think I was able to appreciate it. But I always liked it. But what was interesting is I don't remember. So I was young. I was completely fooled by Eve's story. You know what I'm saying? Like I wasn't like Birdie. I completely was like, oh my god, this woman is so and I guess
Oh, that's interesting.
yeah, I'm saying like, I don't know if I saw this now for the first time, like your partner did. Would my bullshit detector be up, or maybe even just knowing like, oh,
Well, she
this,
definitely knew right away that something was off.
okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. I also didn't know what I opened this discussion with is like the all about Eve paradigm of like an ingenue coming after an older woman. Like I didn't know what this is the movie that taught me what that was.
Right, right,
So I
right.
wasn't
Yeah.
suspicious of it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, well, you were so young.
Of course.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
my question is I'm wondering for somebody who hasn't seen this before, would this still play? Would you know, like Birdie does, that Eve is full of shit from the beginning?
Yeah.
And does the movie still work?
I think so. I mean, I guess I really should just ask Renee. But no, I think she had heard of the movie. Of course, she knew Betty Davis was in it. She knew the famous line,
Right.
but she had never seen it.
Right.
And then, yeah, she, to be fair, she might have already known a bit of the premise.
No, I'm not
most
asking about
people
Renee so
do.
much. I'm just wondering if anybody, maybe someone younger, just like
I mean, would they? I think they would because of Birdie. Because
Right.
Birdie is showing us like I think. All right. Maybe they wouldn't know the entire premise,
Right.
but I think Birdie would tip them off to something.
Okay, that's my question, I guess, is because she calls it out so early
Yeah.
twice, and she's like, I don't like this. So I think it's not supposed to be like it's not a thriller where it's supposed to be this thing of like, oh, I had no idea. It isn't.
Right,
It's
you're
not like
just
the
like, well, how
usual
does this
suspects
go?
where it's
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
oh, this person who I thought was meek is actually like this mastermind. Maybe that's too extreme an example, but this is what popped in my head.
I think people figure it out, but the fun is how does this unfold?
That's my question. Okay, so
Yeah.
I think it still works. I wrote down so much dialogue in this that I love, so I won't do all of it. But there's one I love where I forget the setup, but Margot says like, if you ever want to if you ever want to punish someone, make them stand in a girdle for 2.5 hours, and then Birdie says, I couldn't even get into the girdle in 2.5 hours.
Oh, right,
I thought that
right,
was a
right.
great.
That's a great
The dialogue
line,
in this
yeah.
movie is so great. I mean,
Yeah, yeah.
one line from this movie is very famous, but I think in general, there's just so much great dialogue. Even in like the serious scenes, like where Bill says to Margot, I love you for some qualities and in spite of others. You know, I think that's great.
I also like when she says, I am a junkyard.
Yeah. Yeah. Like it's interesting because Margot in some ways is very, very self-aware.
Yeah.
Like she said, like even the famous line, it's gonna be a bumpy night. She's like, I'm gonna throw a temper tantrum. Like she's like, I'm
the more reason for her to grow up, right? Because she's aware of what she
right.
does.
She's not unaware of her behavior.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I think that's what's so frustrating. And I think this movie's great about calling its heroine out on her bad behavior, particularly with Karen and Bill
Mm-hmm.
and Lloyd to a lesser extent. But you just see that, you know, she's an asshole. She's petulant. She's immature, but it's also nice that she grows out of that. I
Mhm.
think I agree with you. It's a little bit of a shame that like it has to be at the expense of her career.
Yeah.
It's like, darling, that's like, let's scale that back a bit. Like you can still work.
You can still work. Yeah.
Because it's like, they're not talking about having kids. Back then 40 was way too old.
To have kids.
Yeah. So that never comes up. So it's like, why can't you work?
Yeah,
But
there's really no reason.
so Anne Baxter. So yeah, let's talk about her. I think she's really great in this movie. It's
Oh, yeah.
it's funny if you had told me that like two actresses in this movie weren't getting along, I would have said Betty Davis and Anne Baxter. They apparently got along great. So that's just, I guess, me being a little stereotypical in terms of like, oh, those two must have not gotten along.
Now, I did not look this up, but had Anne Baxter worked a lot prior to this film?
Yeah, I think she was. I mean, I think she
I
was up and
forgot.
coming. She was
She was up and
around.
coming though. Okay, so Betty Davis clearly had the longer career.
Yeah, well, she's much older just by virtue of
Well,
like.
sure, but even so, right?
No,
Like
Betty Davis was the bigger star, and so Ann Baxter is 27
when she filmed it.
when she filmed it.
Ah, interesting. Okay, so a little older than I thought.
Yeah, but I think she looks younger.
She does. She does. She
I
looks
mean, she's
early
got like a
20s.
very.
I think she's playing 22, don't you
Oh
think?
yeah,
22,
yeah.
23.
I think this.
She's playing younger.
Yeah. No, she was. Oh, Ann Baxter. I'm nuts. She was in the Magnificent Ambersons, Orson Welles' second movie.
I didn't
Yeah,
notice that.
she's got a part in that. She's in The Razor's Edge. So yeah, so Ann Baxter's around, but I don't think that she doesn't have the star wattage
Of
Betty Davis. So yeah, I think she's playing a little bit younger. 'Cause, yeah, I think Eve is supposed to be 22, 25 tops.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, I don't even think she's that. I think she's pretty similar in age to the Marilyn Monroe character.
Yes.
It's just sort of like
Very different.
different. It's
types.
like it's like both these women. It's like she's not. The Marilyn Monroe character is just. Like she has that great line when she sees when Marilyn Monroe sees the fur coat. She says, "Now there's something a girl can make sacrifices for." And then someone says, "Someone already has." So I think you see that like the Marilyn Monroe character is very just like open about like I want to be a star. I don't care how it happens.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's interesting because it's like you wonder if Eve, if she were more honest, would it have like why does she feel that she needs to lie? I mean, I understand why she tells this story about
Right.
the dead, her husband getting killed and all this other
And
stuff.
and when we find out when Addison DeWitt does his digging, right? And we find out that she had an affair with a married man who paid her off, and that's how she had the money to even move
Right.
out of whatever state it was that she was in. I think it was Iowa.
I think it was
something
Iowa,
like that. That's a callback to something that before we started recording.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that is interesting to me too. Like, was she just weird and nothing, and something maybe almost happened, but not really, and it wasn't as crazy? Like, was there this full blown affair? Or was it like a lot? I don't want to say. I mean, no matter what it was, obviously it was detrimental to people. But I just mean, did she blow up what it was? Because it seems like she's not in touch with reality at all.
Do you think that? But what's interesting about Eve is she clearly her success. She's clearly a good actress. Like we don't see either one of them act. It's very
No,
interesting.
yeah.
You never see the performances, which I think is a good thing.
Yeah, yeah.
Because I don't like seeing plays and movies where I don't know the context. I just feel like it's like filler and stuff. This movie's long enough as it is. But it isn't that Eve is untalented. It isn't about this woman who has no talent. So I think that's kind of the tragedy of Eve is that like she is a good actress. I mean, she's acting when we meet her. She's playing this role.
Yeah.
And she's just using, and she's manipulating people. But her success is still, I guess, like Margot's because she's a really good actress. And I think she just gets there by like this really horrible path.
Right, right.
And we see that like her future's not so bright. She's going to Hollywood to do a movie, but she's got an Eve in her nest now.
Right, right.
And you see how that girl at the end, doesn't tell any lies. She's just like, oh, we have a fan club, and I'm like, I'm the president of it, and I know everything about you, and I have your picture, whatever, all the stuff that she says, and how much younger that girl is, because
she's like supposed to be in high school, I think.
I think she's in high school.
Yeah.
But you see, again, that last image, you just see like, oh, this is just going to go on and on and on. You could jump ahead 10 years. I don't want to.
Yeah.
And see this, So it's interesting that like there's such a tragedy about Eve, even though I don't have empathy for her, but I do recognize her as a tragic character because it
is tragic, but also isn't it saying something about just being a woman, if I may, in this world? Because you don't see this movie about a man. You don't even really. I mean, tell me, you would know better than me. Do you ever see a story like this, but with men?
Talented Mr. Ripley.
Okay.
I mean, that character's more. I mean, that just popped in my head.
Yeah.
I mean,
all
he's
right.
a little bit put in that situation because Jude Law's father sends him there. But I think it's a similar. It's rare. I think it's
rare.
very rare.
Okay.
It's
More rare.
It's
not
exceedingly rare.
It's not never, but it's definitely much more rare.
I mean, Ripley might not even be a good
Because-
example because maybe Ripley is because he's sent
Well,
to.
You even said it earlier where you're like, you can only think of this happening with men and that happening with men and think of all these male stars that blah, blah. I mean, I think that speaks volumes. I think there's something about being a woman in the world, especially of the world back then,
Yeah.
where in 1950 it was definitely now go home and have babies because
Yeah.
we just went through all these wars,
Yeah.
and um, I feel like I don't know if Joseph Mankiewicz was saying this or not, but there's something like that you have to make all these sacrifices in order to be great. Like Margot herself, we don't know, but did she sacrifice having a family for her career?
Probably.
I think it's implied,
I think it's a
and
safe assumption.
it's a safe assumption. And then you assume the same thing will happen with Eve and this other young girl. Like the idea of in order to get this greatness, Miss Caswell is going to have to literally sacrifice her body in order to get anything. And I
Yeah.
just think this idea of sacrifice.
Yeah.
And I suppose Addison DeWitt does comment on this in the beginning, how he says something about the theater he doesn't say grueling world, but he makes a comment on the world of the theater
Yeah.
that's not
Yeah. Addison,
complimentary.
Let's pivot to him because Addison is sort of like George Sanders is so great in this movie. He's the only actor who
Yes.
wins an Oscar for this movie. And I think he's definitely positioned as sort of like this arch villain, but in a weird way, and I'm not saying he necessarily is. I think he's positioned as like he's definitely an antagonist. Like, oh fuck, here comes Addison. Here comes Addison.
Right.
And he's given such sharp dialogue. I mean, they all are. And I think he's definitely the most cynical. He's definitely like you sort of intimated it a few minutes ago that like, okay, like he knows Marilyn Monroe is going to have to sleep with that producer, and
Yeah.
she's going to be, I'm not saying this to be callous, she's going to be passed around.
Yeah.
And she is one of a million girls in that position. I'm
Yeah.
not saying that to make
Yeah.
a joke about it, to make light of it.
No, but
It's Marilyn Monroe herself,
Was in
there's all
that,
kinds,
yeah.
was in that position. Yeah, so I think that Addison knows where all the bodies are buried and understands this world maybe better than any other character in this. And I think that Addison's able to sort of like see the whole field, which is why
It's like he's watching everything like a play.
he's watching everything like a play. He's watching the whole thing and he's like, he has a line, I think he says it to Margot, he's like, "You're maudlin, you're full of self-pity,
Yeah,
you're
yeah.
magnificent."
Yeah.
Sorry for that shitty George Sanders impression.
No, but it's
but
fabulous.
but like he is, it's like when you see that character, you almost know like, oh, this guy won Best Supporting Actor. Like this is such like a role, it's such like a lush role, because the other men in this movie are more reactive.
I agree with you.
I mean, Bill's
Yeah.
very strong,
Yeah.
but he is reacting
He's
to
reacting.
Margot and having to deal with Margot. And Lloyd is really reactive. And
Yeah.
Lloyd is almost like the most reactive
Yes.
character, has almost no agency. But Addison doesn't react to anything. Addison is just like, okay, I'm gonna stand here. I'm gonna watch this unfold. And I
Yeah.
think it's because he's a drama critic. He's just he's such an important character. I mean, I
Yeah.
don't even know. I mean, I don't know. Like, if Addison were alive today, would he be like a podcaster? Would he be like Matt Bellany? I don't know who he would be.
That's a good
like,
question.
like I don't know
Yeah, a critic with a lot of power.
A lot of power.
We'd have
Like-
to think of a critic with
like
a lot of power.
I don't think a single person has that much power anymore because you mentioned the internet at the beginning of our conversation. It's in the aggregate. It's if people on the
Yes.
internet don't like you or like you,
Yeah.
you'll get clicks and all that other
And there are
stuff.
some people, like New York Times critics, there are some people with some power,
Right.
but not
It's
like that.
very diminished.
Yeah.
Like he's somebody, like if he doesn't like your play, you are fucked.
Yeah.
And if he doesn't like, and I think the women, like Marilyn Monroe, shows up at the party with him. Or does she show up with him, or she show up with
No, she showed up with
Harry Fabe, the producer?
the producer.
Okay.
Yeah.
But she knows, Marilyn Monroe's character is smart enough to know, she knows who he is.
Mm-hmm,
She knows that this is like a serious guy. So I think that's another thing that sort of marks this movie in time, like a single person having that much power.
That's a very good point. Yeah, it's not how things operate anymore. No, I have a question. I actually think Addison DeWitt, that character, is gay.
I would have, it's funny.
I think if that movie was made now, I think he would be.
Well, the only thing, it's interesting, before we watched it again yesterday, I hadn't seen it in a long time.
Mhm.
And I remember the movie. I didn't remember. Well, let's talk about it. Let's bring these two trains together. So Addison's little arc is he's just like this snarky guy who doesn't have any empathy, and then he calls Eve out on her shit, And at first he's like, what you did was shameful and is disrespectful to the men who died in the war. And you're like, oh, Addison's growing up. But then he's like, I own your ass now. And which brings you right to your question you just asked a second ago. Does that mean is she like in sexual enslavement to him, or is like what is like that's what I'm saying. Like that's the only thing that like that makes me think maybe he's not gay.
I know what you're. Yes, I think it's written that way to make him not seem gay, but I still think that character is gay.
I think that character would be gay today.
I really, really think so. There's something about
what does he want?
him.
Wait, hang on. What does he want with Eve then? What does he mean then at the end of the movie that we have? I own you. Does that mean like because he's like what does he want from her?
I think perhaps maybe to control, to have someone to manipulate the way things work. She caused a lot of destruction.
Right.
Maybe he doesn't want her to have that kind of power anymore.
Right.
And he wants it himself. I mean, he sort of owns Broadway.
Right.
And
so it's not sexual.
I think it's presented, and most people would assume that's what it was supposed to be. But personally, I don't see it. I don't think he has any chemistry with any of the women, and I think that he's
I think
that's chemistry, yes, but not sexual chemistry.
No, I don't think he doesn't show even like with the Marilyn
with Miss Caswell,
right? Even like the Marilyn Monroe character, like the guys are all drooling, and he's just like, interesting.
He's like another one like this.
Right.
He looks at her like a toy on a shelf almost. Like, that you walk past. Like, oh, another one of those.
Because he's unattached. So if he wanted to sleep with her, he could, and we never see him. And it's just like...
I don't even know that he tries to.
He doesn't. He doesn't show any... There isn't... Because like in this movie and the Asphalt Jungle more so, it's just like... Who is she? Oh my God. It's like almost like guys' bow ties are spinning, like, so that's intentional and that's fine. His interest in Caswell is not sexual, even to degrade her.
Yeah.
He doesn't even say like, oh, I'd like to sleep with her and then just like dump her the next day. Yeah. So I think this character probably is gay. I just wonder what,
and couldn't be in that time.
Of course not. But I don't think but they don't make him heteronormative either.
No, but
we don't see them with a woman even on his arm.
But that's what I'm saying. Like, I think that's how. I mean, there's other people who've done way better research on this, but like gay characters throughout time, they've always been there. They're just presented in a certain way where everyone kind of knows.
Right.
But
well, one of my favorite movies, which is 2 years before this movie called Rope that Alfred Hitchcock made, where this movie?
No, I never saw it.
So it's basically these 2 gay men kill their friend. Just to see if they can get away with it. And these guys are gay, and Hitchcock intended it, but they just dance around it. And the 2 actors he cast, Farley Granger and John Dahl, were gay.
Oh, wow.
I don't think they were in a relationship with each other. And Cary Grant wouldn't do the movie because he didn't want to be associated with it because he was bisexual, as you know.
Right.
So Jimmy Stewart got his part. It's the first Jimmy Stewart Hitchcock movie.
Oh.
And it's Leopold and Loeb who were gay.
Oh,
it's not that story.
Right. I heard about this.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's famous because it's a lot of unbroken takes. The whole thing is like a play. It's like 80 minutes long. So there's like 10, 20-minute takes of them just like panning around this apartment. It's an incredible movie, but that's a movie intentionally where the characters are homosexual and they just dance around it because they had to. And that was like Hitchcock's thing. It's just like, oh, how far can I push this? And the movie's, there's no sex or anything in the movie because like, but there's all like Clifton Webb and Vincent Price and Laura. They're not in a relationship with each other. They're 2 clearly gay men, and they're both obsessing over this woman. And it's a great movie, but it's sort of like
what movie is this? Sorry,
Laura from 1944. More famous for the theme. You probably have heard the theme a million times.
Probably.
Like Charlie Parker did it. You've heard that. If I were to play the music, you're like, oh yeah, I know this song. But it's these 2 guys obsessed with this woman, and they're good actors, but you're like, you guys are not interested. You're not interested in her sexually.
Yeah.
You're interested in like possessing her.
But that's what I mean about Addison DeWitt.
That's what I think. I think he wants to possess
Eve. Yeah.
Like make her like a doll he plays with. I don't think so. I think you're right. I hadn't thought about it, but I think you're right. I think he's gay, and his interest in her is not, I'm gonna conquer you sexually. I own you.
I also think it gives him power to be gay because he's not swayed by Miss Caswell or whoever walks in.
He can't be manipulated.
He can't be manipulated.
I mean, you could see
And he
a
gets the
male.
drama of Margot.
What's that?
He gets the drama. of
Right.
Margot.
No, I mean, he is. Yeah. The more I think about it, I mean, I never thought, oh, he wasn't gay. I don't know if George Sanders himself was gay, but I think
I don't know.
But I think also the fact that he's English, he's very well dressed, he's like impeccably, I think it's, yeah, I think if there were a male Eve, he could be
Yeah.
manipulated by a young man. If you were
Yeah.
to, I'm not saying you should, if you were to switch it to two men,
Mhm.
Eve and Margot being men, you could see a young
Yeah.
Eve that he might not be so fortified against. So yeah, I think Addison's probably gay, and I don't think it's necessarily might be what's intended. Like I was just making about the
I
Hitchcock
wonder if
movie.
it was intended, and
I'm sure
I
Mankiewicz
don't
was like,
know that
okay,
I
this guy's
read
gay.
that. Yeah.
I think this guy's gay, but it's 1950s, so I got to dance around it. Because there's a whole. I mean, there's been books written about this, and I just named one movie, but there's all kinds of. I mean, there's things in. There's a scene that was cut out of Kubrick's Spartacus that was put back in when they restored it,
Oh.
where Tony Curtis is giving Laurence Olivier a bath, and it's very they had to cut it out back then, and then they put it back in when they restored the movie, and then famously Anthony Hopkins had to loop Olivier because Olivier was dead, and Hopkins could do an Olivier impression.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so it's Hopkins looping Olivier because they didn't have they couldn't loop that scene. They didn't have the original soundtracks.
Oh
and
wow.
Olivier was even if you weren't dead, he would have been like 40 years older,
Yeah.
30 years older. He wouldn't have sounded good. Yeah. So no, I think Addison. Yeah, the more I think about it, I think he's definitely gay. And yeah, I think he just loves. I mean, it's a stereotype, but he loves the drama.
Yeah. A stereotype, yes. I'm not saying, but I do. And like you just said, it's a way to have it in the movie without making it.
Yeah, I think it was intentional. I think this world appears to me to be very well researched, and I'm sure there were many closeted gay men. I'm positive there were many closeted gay men, and I'm sure Addison is that's a stereotype in itself, like this snarky gay critic.
It is.
I mean, you could see Addison in 2026. He would have a podcast. He would have a TV show. He might, like you could see this same dude living very comfortably now, just with certain adjustments. He'd be an influencer, maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe he'd be a little too old, but maybe he'd be an influencer. Maybe he'd have to make him 10, 20 years younger or something. But we're surrounded by Addison DeWitts right now. Not as witty as him.
Right.
Yeah. I love a line that Addison has. I think he says to Eve, because another thing that Eve does is, where it's like, oh, you were wonderful. Oh, I barely got through it. Like it's like, and he says something, I think he says it to her. It's just as false not to blow your horn at all as it is to blow it too loudly. And I love that.
That's a great line. That's a great line.
Because I think like, Addison's sort of the Greek chorus of this movie.
Yeah.
Because he's not really affected by anything that's happening. He doesn't have to intercede into this Eve thing. Like, none of it's affecting him. So I think he's like watching all this from a remove, and so he's more objective. Like, you said, like, he loves the drama, and I think he does, but he's also able to see this.
Yeah.
And he's also able to be like, wait a minute. Like, Birdie, he probably calls her out. He probably immediately twigs, like, oh, this girl's full of shit.
Yeah.
I've seen this before. I've seen girls come to Broadway.
And I think that's it. He's seen it all before, so many times over.
But there's something about her that maybe it's because she's actually a really good actress. Like, I think this movie is saying this woman is really, really talented. But
that's true, because Addison sees her and says she has something.
Right.
He wants to help her, and then he realizes she's...
Right. No one has said... The movie never takes a position that, like, Eve sucks and that she manipulated or slept her way onto the stage. It's all like, oh, she's really, really good. It's just that the way that she got there was fucked.
And maybe what they're saying, too, is she's really good because she acts all the time, every day, with everyone.
Right. And Margot doesn't do that. Right. To her detriment. Margot is herself. Herself kind of sucks, but she's not... the only thing we see Margot do that's like dishonest is when she pretends not to know, when she shows up at the read through or at the audition late, and she pretends not to know that Eve read. That's like and then she gets called on. That's the only thing we see her do that's like dishonest. Everything else is like nakedly honest with Margot.
Yeah.
And so I think that's an interesting thing about that. The difference between those two is that Margot's probably a better actress because she's more honest.
Sure.
Yeah. And as an actor, the most important thing is
honesty.
Yeah. I mean, I have some complicated feelings about David Mamet, but he said this great thing. He says that writers lie, actors tell the truth. Oh. And I think that's true. I think this movie's one of many that show that. I'm not saying because it's about the theater. I just think this movie's showing that.
I will say, I just love that movies, and Born Yesterday too, I suppose you could throw this in there too. I'm familiar with the play of Born Yesterday. I just like that it's female roles getting attention. And I think they did for a while. I know there was the whole box office poison thing, but that was more in the 40s, right?
For Bette Davis?
Yeah.
Was that her or Katharine Hepburn or both of them?
Well, it's definitely Katharine Hepburn.
Okay.
I don't know if it was Bette Davis. Karina Longworth would know because she said it in one of her podcasts.
Katharine Hepburn definitely
was box office poison
for a while.
Greta Garbo was too, I think.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm not as,
I guess my point is there was a time where female movie stars were like a thing.
Yeah, this is it.
And this is it. And then it kind of waned later on. And why, but how are they a thing? Like, are they showing, and this is just a question, like, is this movie showing women are either super dramatic, super conniving, or good wives like Karen? Is he trying to show the three sides of it? I don't know.
I mean, the Karen character is interesting because she does do the thing she does by draining the car.
Yeah.
Is kind of petulant. I understand why she does it.
Yeah,
but
I thought that was a little strange.
But I get it.
I get it.
I don't think Karen is a Mary Sue. Meaning, like, I don't think like Karen is supposed to be like this virtuous character.
Right, okay,
she's not a sort of encumbered with the petty jealousies that Eve and Margot. She's not part of that. But I do think, I mean, she has her own issues. She has her jealousies as far as her marriage is concerned. But yeah, I don't think he's trying to just paint anybody as like a saint. But I mean, to your question of. It definitely feels like a time where we have more female movie stars than, I mean, I open by saying we don't have any female movie stars now, but let's go back to like the 90s or 2000s. I mean, there was Julia Roberts, Sandra Bullock. I mean, who were the other ones that like?
Well, Kate Winslet becomes one later on, a little bit later on.
Yeah, but I'm talking about like women. I'm talking like on that level of like a woman being in a movie everyone's going to see, like Julia Roberts, Sandra Bullock, putting aside what the genre of these movies are.
Yeah.
Winslet, I think, kind of could have been that after Titanic, but uses that opportunity rightfully to do smaller
indie
roles,
stuff,
to do indie stuff. Like she uses that cachet. So, yeah. So I feel like there were, I think in this period we are seeing women that are as big a box office draw as men. Bette Davis being one of them. Marilyn Monroe obviously is coming up. It's just so fascinating that like I'm not comparing the two any. It's just interesting that like a big movie star is in a movie with a movie star about to become one.
Yeah.
Imagine like if Clint Eastwood had like one scene in a John Wayne Western, when he was like 22 years old. And you'd be like, oh my God, this is like, I'm not comparing Monroe and Davis any more than that. But I'm just saying, but like, imagine if that happened. Around this same time. Imagine if like because Clint Eastwood would be about 20 years old here. Imagine if he had like one scene in like a John Wayne Western and you'd be like, oh, this is crazy because he becomes like the biggest movie star in the world or one of them. So, yeah, I think, I mean, this movie's really fascinating and it's really rich and there's so much to talk about, more so than I even thought. Let's move on to categorically denied. Before we get to Best Picture, let's see if All About Eve was worthy of the other 5 Oscars that it won. So this one's really interesting to me. Best Director, Joseph L. Mankiewicz beats John Huston for The Asphalt Jungle, George Cukor for Born Yesterday, Billy Wilder for Sunset Boulevard, and Carol Reed for The Third Man. So what of these movies that you've seen, that you remember, just talking about Best Director now, do you think Joseph Mankiewicz keeps his Best Director Oscar?
I do. I don't even have too much to say on it. I do. I just think, and the fact that he wrote it too is just
right. Well, we're gonna get to that in a minute. Yeah, I think this is. I didn't know the full makeup of this category until I was preparing for this episode, and I want to talk about the category just for a second, and I'll definitely come down on I'll give my answer. So in 2010, the best director category was for the most part a really fun collection of directors. So it was Darren Aronofsky, it was the Coen brothers, it was David Fincher, it was David O. Russell, and Tom Hooper, who wins for The King's Speech. And we'll talk about The King's Speech when we get to that episode. I mean, I think it's like a really fun collection of directors. I think John Huston Billy Wilder, Carol Reed, and Joseph L. Mankiewicz are really great. I think George Cukor is great. I think Born Yesterday is good. We'll talk about it more in depth, but I just think this is like a really like fun collection of directors and not typical. Like The Third Man is not up for Best Picture. It's not up for any big awards. And that's like a really kind of culty movie. I was shocked to learn that he was nominated for Best Director in a nice way. Like it's just a nice surprise. I just think this is like these are just directors I really, really like all bunched together. And a lot of times when you look at this, it's either directors that I don't think are very good or their movies aren't so great. My pick though is Billy Wilder for Sunset Boulevard. I think that, I think Mankiewicz does a great job. I don't have anything to take away from him, but, for me, just isolating the direction, I think that Sunset Boulevard is stronger. But it's not like it isn't like, oh, how could Mankiewicz have won? I think he does a great job also. And I think the fact that he also wrote it, and Billy Wilder also co-wrote Sunset Boulevard, and they both win writing Oscars, which is interesting because there's 3 writing categories then. So let's move on to Best Supporting Actor. George Sanders beats Jeff Chandler for Broken Arrow, Edmund Gwynn for Mr. 880, Sam Jaffe for The Asphalt Jungle, and Eric von Stroheim for Sunset Boulevard. So of those that you've seen, I've only seen the last 2. I think you're in the same boat, or maybe even less than that. Of those that you've seen that you remember, what do we think? George Sanders, Best Supporting Actor.
Yeah, I think it's so subjective. I think because a lot of it can be the lines that are said, and they're iconic and they're memorable, and he delivers them so well and understatedly and all that. So I don't know. I don't know that one is necessarily better than the other, but I get why
Yeah.
he's singled out.
Yeah, I think George Sanders is great. I think he has it's a character that like has a lot of I mean, he's not a villain in this, but he definitely like when he comes on, he has a lot of like presence in this movie. This is a tough one for me because I think Sam Jaffe's great in The Asphalt Jungle. I don't know if you've ever seen that movie.
I actually haven't.
Yeah, it's kind of like Reservoir Dogs before Reservoir Dogs. It's a John Huston movie. Marilyn Monroe's got a much bigger part in that, but still kind of small. These guys pull a jewel heist, and it's a really fascinating movie. I'll talk more about that soon. He's really great in that. I think Eric von Stroheim in Sunset Boulevard is just iconic. You know, he plays Max the butler. So this is a tough call. I think George Sanders winning, I'm fine with it. I think he's great.
Yeah. I think that's more what I'm saying.
Yeah,
I'm fine
I
with
think
it.
if von Stroheim had won, I would also be like, yes, perfect. So I'll say that I guess I'd rank Sam Jaffe 3rd in that. I think he's also terrific in that, but it's not, it's a much more, I don't think that he has any killer dialogue or any like iconic imagery, So anyway, I'm by a nose, I'm okay with George Sanders, but if the wind had blown and gone to Eric von Stroheim, I'd be just as excited about that. So best screenplay, and there's a little footnote here I want to get into, which also speaks to the time the movie was made in. So best screenplay, it beats The Asphalt Jungle, Born Yesterday, Broken Arrow, and Father of the Bride. So of those, what you've seen, what you remember, best screenplay, does it keep it?
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm gonna say yeah too. I think this is a great script. I think it's chock full of great dialogue. I love the way it's structured.
It's not. It doesn't go on too long. There's nothing that's cringy.
No, I think this is a great script. I think you could
the voiceover's done well, as you've pointed out.
Yeah, I think you could almost just listen to this movie.
Yeah,
like you talk about movies that are good with the sound off. I think this is a movie that's good with the picture off.
With the picture off,
which is something I'm just thinking of for the first time. So yeah, I think this is a great script, and I mean, it's just chock full of it's great. It's just incredibly well written. I think this is probably, of what I've seen, my favorite of Joseph Mankiewicz's movies that he directed. That's a bit of a soft stat. I don't know that I've seen them all or I'm remembering all of them, but I want to talk about something. So the script for Broken Arrow was written by a guy named Albert Maltz, but he had a front because this was the blacklist, and his name was restored to the ballot in 1991. And you're going to see this a lot in this decade. You're going to see a lot of, particularly with the screenwriters, a lot of people that are, it's like Dalton Trumbo is nominated for a lot of Oscars and his name's not on the script. Bridge Don't Ever Cry, the writer wins and his name's not on the script. So these things have all been corrected, even if the person's not alive, like their family's presented with an Oscar, which is really nice. So we're like right in the beginning of the blacklist here also, which is something else we haven't really talked about.
Because it doesn't hit full force
No,
until later.
but it's starting. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
it's costume design, black and white. It beats Born Yesterday and The Magnificent Yankee. Yeah, I think his costume design is great.
Yeah.
I haven't seen Magnificent Yankee. The costumes in Born Yesterday are fine, but yeah. So this was, I think he's had second Oscar already, which is crazy to think about. This one I really don't have anything on, but let's just talk about it. Sound recording. It beats Cinderella, Louisa, Our Very Own, and Trio.
I don't know those.
I've
Yeah.
only seen Cinderella, and yeah, so
Yeah.
sound recording.
Oh yeah, Cinderella. Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, this keeps, it's a bit of a,
Cinderella, the Disney Cinderella.
yeah, I think the
right.
cartoon. I don't
Yeah,
know why
yeah.
that sound recording when it's
That's
animated
interesting.
must be
Okay.
some, but yeah. All right. So Jen, should we fasten our seatbelts for a bumpy night? It's time to test our it's time to test our hindsight with the verdict. Again, it's Born Yesterday, Father of the Bride, King Solomon's Mines, and Sunset Boulevard. Was All About Eve the best movie nominated this year?
Yes.
Yeah, you've already said.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say Sunset Boulevard.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. And I want to talk briefly about the other three movies because I did watch them all, but I'm going to start with Sunset Boulevard. So this season, no filmmaker is going to get mentioned more than Alfred Hitchcock, but I'm only going to mention him once to say that Billy Wilder was the second director that I discovered after I discovered Alfred Hitchcock. I was all about Hitchcock, and then I saw Sunset Boulevard, and I was like, oh wait, there's somebody else. The two have nothing really to do with each other, except for some overlap in cast and stuff. But when I was a kid, I used to write lists of movies that I wanted to see. And if they weren't at the video store, I just didn't see them. You know, you were just out of luck. And Sunset Boulevard was on that list. I'd read about it, and I just happened upon it one morning when I was about 11 years old. I missed the first 10 or 15 minutes. In fact, I only knew that I was watching Sunset Boulevard because of the shot where he drives on Sunset Boulevard and you see the street sign.
Yeah.
And I was like, maybe I had a TV guide that I was able to like look it up real quick and see. So I vividly remember I was 11 years old and I watched this on TV. It was like a Saturday morning. And I just remembered it was like an Oppenheimer blast in my brain. I just remember being owned by every like twist and turn of this. I don't mean like twist, like, just like where he says like Madame got the razor and she slashed her wrists, and then it's like I was her first husband, and just like, and I don't think I even knew that he was dead until I saw the movie a couple weeks later. I think I was able to rent this and I saw the opening. I was like, oh shit. I mean, I knew when they flashed back to him floating in the pool, but this is just one of those experiences that I remember the first time I saw it, and I had a very short list of experiences like this. And this was at home. I didn't see it in a movie theater. I saw it sitting in my parents' den. And yeah, I think the opening of this movie is like one of the greatest movie openings of all time. Just the way it unfolds with the cops rolling up and someone talking and it panning over and the dude's floating in the pool dead.
Yeah.
That's just incredible. I mean, I just think that's amazing. That just was, again, an Oppenheimer blast in my brain. Really love William Holden in this. I think this is his best performance. I think he was just never better than he was here. And he's been great in other things. I think he was kind of a Jack Lemmon before Jack Lemmon because he makes 3 other movies with Billy Wilder. And but this is by far the best one. You and I already talked about Gloria Swanson. And I think she has a line in this movie that's as famous as the line in All About Eve. I am big. It's the pictures that got small. I think that line is.
Oh, and also I'm ready for my close-up.
Like, she's got 2 lines.
Yeah.
So I think it's crazy that these 2 iconic performances happen in the same year.
Yeah.
And there's things thematically that are similar with them, but obviously, Norma Desmond's got a lot more problems than Margaret Channing. You may not like that Margot's hanging up her spurs to be a housewife, but
No, Norma Desmond.
Norma Desmond's going to
is
going to a mental asylum.
Yeah.
I think that's this is, I mean, Norma Desmond is just a iconic character. Again, like Betty Davis, that shot of her going down the stairs with a tiara on.
Yeah.
Everybody knows this character, even if they don't know her by name or the actress's name. It's obviously been a musical that's helped out a lot with this. Eric von Stroheim in this is so creepy. Just again, if it weren't for George Sanders, I would love to see Eric von Stroheim win an Oscar for this. But again, just a creepy character that's so fascinating. Also want to call out Nancy Olson, who was Oscar nominated for this. I think she's kind of the conscious of this movie. I think she's really good. Um, and yeah, again, I prefer this to All About Eve, but I think they're in this inexplicable conversation with each other.
Mhm.
And I can't help but think about what we just went through with like Sinners versus One Battle After Another. Like one battle wins, but I think, I think if Sinners had won, there'd be like, oh, it should have been one battle. I think there's like these movies are in conversation with each other. There's no more explicit conversation between All About Eve and Sunset Boulevard because it's both about actresses.
Mhm.
One's past her prime, one feels like she's about to be. I also thought about like Godfather 2 versus Chinatown, where you just have like two Best Picture nominees of equal or nearly equal standing that are kind of conversing with each other. And I think this is one of the serendipitous things. These aren't the only pairings
Mm.
out there. These are just the ones I thought of. I'm clearly choosing Sunset Boulevard, but I could see someone saying, "How can you choose between these two?" And you're clearly choosing All About Eve on the same token.
And I could say why. I
Please.
really like Sunset Boulevard. My old boss, it was his favorite film.
Mm.
Here's why I will say I choose All About Eve. I think it holds up better.
Okay.
I think Sunset Boulevard, um, there's some, because I rewatched it very recently.
Right.
There's some moments that I get why there were the choices made with Gloria Swanson.
Mhm.
I get why she's doing the weird hook thing with her hands and
Yeah.
the eye thing.
Yeah.
I just feel like it bordered on too much a
Yeah.
lot for me.
Okay.
And I don't know if it were directed now, if
Right.
it would just be grounded more.
Sure.
And then that would solve that problem for me.
Yeah.
I also just think look, I think it's a great film. The monkey in the beginning is still one of the more haunting images for
Yeah.
me. Just
So
the dead
creepy.
monkey and just the kind of realization it's a monkey and all
Yeah.
that. And the car, constantly seeing that car,
Right.
and there's a lot of imagery that sits with you, and the New Year's party where it's just the two of them. There's just so many things,
Right.
and of course the wrists.
Yeah.
I guess for me, there's just more. I guess the characters have more agency in All About Eve, and that's
Sure.
a personal preference.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
Yeah.
I get it. And I have some nostalgia for Sunset Boulevard
Yeah.
that I don't have for All About Eve. That's a little bit of it. Obviously, I mean, these movies I was not born when these movies came out, but I'll plead a little bit of nostalgia there. But that's fine. I mean,
Sure.
Sunset
Yeah.
Boulevard to me is the best movie about Hollywood ever made. I made a list on Letterboxd, and I would put things like The Player on there, and a movie I'm going to get to actually coming up also the same year I want to get to. That's not either one of these movies I want to get to in a minute. That you may like if you even know about it. Yeah, so Sunset Boulevard is my pick. I want to talk briefly about the other three movies that are nominated because I think they're really interesting to talk about. First is Father of the Bride, which is the original version of the Steve Martin version that we grew up with. I think it's okay. I mean, it's like definitely you want to talk about something that's locked in time. Father of the Bride, which has a very young Elizabeth Taylor. Didn't love it. I think it's a really fascinating artifact. If you want to look about like what was going on in 1950, that I'm glad it's changed. I mean, this is like a girl living at home who gets married, and the dad's got to pay for the wedding, and she goes from her father's house to her husband's house, and this is in a lot of movies. It's fine. I want to talk about a movie called King Solomon's Mines, which is kind of what I talk. It's interesting for this one reason is that it's shot on location in Africa. It's in color, and it's Stuart Granger and Deborah Carr. Is it Carr or Kerr? I don't know.
I always said car.
Carr. Is it
Or
Carr?
Maybe that's wrong.
I don't know. Anyway, who's going to come up a lot in this decade. She's in one Best Picture winner and a couple nominees. It's kind of like a Indiana Jones before Indiana Jones. It's not as good as that. It's interesting to just see what Hollywood was trying to do to compete with television. Again, shot on location in Africa. They're really there. It's in color. It's not great. I could think of a lot of movies, that should be there instead of it. And then Born Yesterday, I want to talk about because I think this movie is actually really interesting. Judy Holliday wins. She beats Swanson and Davis. I think her performance is kind of more difficult than it seems because she's playing like this ditzy blonde,
Right,
and the whole thing is like
you have
her
to be
getting
smart to get
educated.
done.
William Holden pops
Yeah.
up in this one too. It's interesting that he's in two of these movies. Yeah, I would imagine it skews pretty close to the play. I think the performances in
I
it
think
are really
so.
good.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's really good. Broderick Crawford's really good. William Holden's role is small in it, but he's effective. Yeah, I mean, I guess if I were to rank these movies, I'd say, I don't know, Father and the Bride and King Solomon's Mines would be toward the bottom, Born Yesterday be in the middle, and then All About Eve and Sunset Boulevard would
Right.
be at the top.
Right.
So it's just interesting way things break down. So now it's time for the appeal. Was All About Eve the best movie of 1950, period, nominated or not?
I mean, I can't say I've seen that many
Sure.
films of that year that I can really speak fairly to it.
Right.
But
When we get in these older decades, it's kind of hard.
yeah.
I'm going to say my favorite movie of the year is Sunset Boulevard for all the movies that I said above.
Right,
And that's
right.
growingly obvious.
Yeah.
So our next category is Spotlight, where we can spotlight something from any movie we like, a performance, cinematography, score, stunt sequence, any little thing from any movie this year that kind of popped for us. So you can do something from All About Eve if you want, or Sunset Boulevard, or any other movie, or anything from any movie this year, performance, score, stunt, anything.
But spotlight in a positive way.
Yes. Well, it can be negative if you want, but if you have something negative, we could talk about that. That could be.
Well, I already said it. Whereas like Gloria Swanson had like a lot of great stuff. I guess it would be so. She's somebody that I would have loved to interview.
How come?
Someone who actually lived the silent film era and watched the transition to talkies, and she herself, pivoted. And I think I don't exactly remember what she did, but it was something else. Like,
Well, the movie you see when they're watching the movie, that's really her. When they're watching the movie in her living room.
Yeah.
And that movie was directed by Eric von Stroheim, who plays Max. So it's very meta that these two are in the movie together because he really was a big director. And he had not acted before. I don't think he acted after that. So Wilder
and DeMille acts in this.
DeMille
plays
and Buster
himself,
Keaton.
But I thought he was good.
Yeah, he was very good. All those people
Buster
she's playing
Keaton,
cards
that's
with.
right.
Everyone
But
she's
he
playing
doesn't
cards
do
with.
anything. He's just quiet, which is interesting.
But everyone she's playing cards with, those are all actors
Yeah.
of her generation.
Yeah.
It's very meta before that was even a thing.
Which is fun. That makes it extra fun, I suppose.
So you'd want to interview Gloria Swanson
because I just that change, that huge change, and to be someone. Sorry, my clip-on earring is itching. Someone who is that, and then someone who was a silent film star, had this long gap, and then comes back to it about the industry and plays an actress, obviously not herself, but somebody in such an exaggerated, out of touch way. It just would be a fascinating conversation, I think.
You know what popped in my head right as you were sort of saying that? And I'm not leveling the movies on the same, but it's just, it's like he wanted a silent film actress to play that part. And when they wrote Birdman, they really wanted Michael Keaton to play that part because he was in that specific position of, I played a superhero a long time ago, and now I'm going on stage where I'm not comparing the two movies at all. I think there's some DNA in there. So, I think
it's an interesting
when sound comes, that really was an existential threat, and that destroyed way more careers than television or streaming or AI ever will. I mean, if you talk to Gloria Swanson, if she were alive today, she'd tell you you guys were worried about AI and streaming, sound really did destroy the industry. I mean, not destroyed it in that there were no more movies, but that killed a lot of jobs. That killed a lot of careers. There's very few people who made the transition from silent to sound. There's almost nobody.
Very, very few. Yeah.
I mean, everybody. I mean, who was a silent movie star that was a movie star in talkies, or at least on the same level?
I don't think, top of my head, I can't
think of anybody either. I'm not saying there isn't anybody, but Chaplin still makes movies, but he's not at the
level he was.
Exactly. And the same thing with even directors like
Buster Keaton, same thing.
Same thing. It's it's like that was a change that killed a lot of careers, which just doesn't mean to say it was the wrong change.
Right.
So I think it's just to kind of bring things full circle. It's that was a real threat. But they probably talked about sound the same thing we talk about AI and streaming and all this other stuff in television 75 years ago. Well, that's interesting. So you'd want to talk to her and just.
I also think wouldn't it be cool to ask her? Oh, I suppose I would, of course, love to talk to Betty Davis too. I'd like to talk to any of them. I think it would be a fascinating conversation regardless. But it would be cool to just say what do you think of television? Like, if you were interviewing them then, are you afraid of it? Do you think it's
Yeah.
I think that would be
Yeah.
fascinating. And what did Gloria Swanson think of being iconic? You know, they say when you have a, more a higher, tower to fall from, that it hurts more,
Yeah.
right? So it's like, what is that like? What is it like to be iconic and a star and then an era that you just don't recognize and it doesn't recognize you?
Yeah.
And in Sunset Boulevard, it's like a 20-year difference. I believe they keep saying it's been 20
Yeah.
years.
Which makes
And
sense because it would have been so it's 1950, sound comes in 27. So this thing by 1930 she was done. That
she
all
was
that all
done.
checks out.
And she would have been 30 in the
Right.
movie because
She's
she was
50. I
playing
think
50.
yeah, I mean she's playing exactly. It's 1950, she's 50, so she would have been like in her 20s,
Yeah.
even
And they
teens.
say a girl of 16 is when she
Yeah.
started or something
She was
like that.
16 when she started, which was normal back then.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mary Pickford was. Yeah. She
Yeah,
was younger.
all those ladies were, they were
Yeah.
girls.
Yeah. Dorothy Gish and
Yeah, all that.
yeah, so I find all of that really, but I would also love to just hear, if they would ever be candid, women, what they're saying about it. Like, how did they find their
Mm.
agency? Betty Davis had balls of steel
Yeah.
to say she wouldn't do certain pictures. Like,
Yeah.
where does that come from? And I
Right.
suppose it's walking away power. You get to a certain point where you're like, I don't need this anymore. And I suppose that's where the agency and the power is. But I would be fascinated to hear what they would have to say.
That's a fascinating answer, one we've never had before, but I love it. So I'm gonna spotlight three things. 2 movies and a shot. So we mentioned a little bit, or I have, The Asphalt Jungle. This was not nominated for Best Picture, but it did get 4 Oscar nominations. It got nominated for screenplay, director, cinematography, and Sam Jaffe's up for supporting actor. So it was recognized. John Huston, I think this is the first movie he makes after winning Best Director and Best Screenplay for Treasure of the Sierra Madre. So he's a big deal at this point. And I love that this got, even though it didn't get nominated for Best Picture, that this got Academy attention because it shows that like the stuffy snobbery hadn't fully enveloped the Academy yet. And I called that out in a lot of Best Picture nominees in the 80s. You were in the first episode of that season. I think this is a dark horse for John Huston's best movie. Now I haven't seen all of them. I've seen a lot of them, so the jury's still out. But I feel like what's great about The Asphalt Jungle is that he's portraying like the grime and like of like the streets, like the criminal grime of the streets, but he's doing it very elegantly. So like he's letting you know it's still a movie. You know, it isn't like I like the Safdie brothers, but it isn't like that where it's like I'm gonna hire non-actors and like just turn the camera on and you feel like you're watching a documentary. That could be effective. This is a movie that is still showing us like really dingy rooms, really like kind of nasty criminals, and it just feels, I hate to use the word authentic, but it just feels real to me. It could be total bullshit, but and I feel like this was going, this is like film noir is getting into its second decade now, and I feel like this is a great example. You ever seen this movie, The Asphalt Jungle? No.
I don't, I might, to be fair, I might have, but it's been like 30 years.
So I crushed a lot of tape on a lot of film noirs from 1950, and I was kind of hoping to find, I didn't get through all of them before recording it, but I was kind of hoping to find like a cool little one. And a lot of them kind of crumble under the weight of their own simplicity. Like they start out really great and they just like get like really kind of like, oh, I know what's going to happen here.
And there's no need to keep going.
Well, I mean, I kept going, but they're all like,
Yeah.
oh, this is just like, this really isn't that interesting, and I want it to be more than it was. This is just one that people should check out. I think it's kind of obscure, but this is Marilyn Monroe's got a slightly bigger part in this than she does in All About Eve, but it came out 6 months earlier, but it's really showcasing her. One of the villains in this movie is this like, I don't know, 60-year-old man, and his girlfriend is Marilyn Monroe, which is of course creepy, but it's a real kind of showcase of her, the Marilyn Monroe persona, which you see flashes of in All About Eve, but it's interesting to see. And then, Houston puts her on her last movie, The Misfits, 11 years later.
Right.
So he goes back to her, which is interesting. The next movie is one I think you would love. I don't know if you know it. Have you ever seen In a Lonely Place?
I've heard of this movie. No,
Okay.
I need to put it on my
This
list.
movie's right up your street, and it's another movie that could be in conversation with All About Eve and Sunset Boulevard because it is about, it's actually almost a weird combination of both because it's about a screenwriter, but screenwriter who's much older. Humphrey Bogart's probably older than Betty Davis, and he's like losing grip on his life. And Humphrey Bogart, this was a passion project of his. His production company made it, and this is the worst prick he's ever played in a movie. If A24 or Neon existed in 1950, this is what the movie would look like. This feels like a movie that like you would see today because the main character is just a real prick. He's just really unpleasant. There is a plot involving a murder. So Bogart is a screenwriter and he goes home with this like hat check girl and she leaves his apartment and she's murdered and he's a suspect. And that's the plot, but it's really more character based than that. It's really more about like this guy who's completely self-destructive and he gets in a relationship with Gloria Graham. Do you know her? She won an Oscar, not for this. A couple years later, she wins an Oscar for, I think, The Bad and the Beautiful. She looks a lot like the young Annette Bening.
Okay.
And Annette Bening actually plays her as an older woman in this movie. I forget the name of it, where she marries like an 18-year-old. That's like the part. And Annette Bening is kind of doing Gloria Graham when she's in The Grifters.
Okay.
Not in this movie, but more in like The Big Heat. So Gloria Graham's a really fascinating actress that was, I don't know how famous she was, but like this is her time, like the 50s. She pops up in a lot of movies. Like she has a famous scene in The Big Heat where the villain like throws a pot of coffee on her face and burns her. And this was directed by Nicholas Ray, who directed Rebel Without a Cause. And I think this is a better movie. That's a more famous movie, but he was doing a lot of really interesting work in the early 50s and late 40s. This movie's just fascinating because, again, it's just a character that's a real asshole and really self-destructive. And that's the driving engine of this movie is this guy going to self-destruct? Not as much did he kill this girl or is he going to go to jail for killing this girl? So, and it's a little bit about Hollywood. You know, you do see, but it's kind of like you could see the William Holden character in Sunset Boulevard maybe becoming this guy had he not gotten killed like 20 years on, or I don't know how much older Bogart is than, you know, maybe 15 years on. So it's definitely worth a look. It's a fascinating movie. There's Criterion of both All About Eve and In a Lonely Place.
When did Sabrina come out?
54.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, which is also Billy Wilder.
And Humphrey Bogart.
Yeah, they had played brothers in a movie, like an early William Holden movie. I forget the name of it. So I think they played, and they're brothers in Sabrina also. So my last thing is actually a shot from a movie called Gun Crazy, which is it's a very obscure, Jen shaking your head, it's a very obscure movie. In 1950, tracking shots were uncommon if they existed at all. There's a scene in Gun Crazy. So Gun Crazy is about, it's kind of like a Bonnie and Clyde, but it came first. It's about these two people. It's a couple that are robbing banks all around the country. And there's a scene where a camera's mounted in the backseat of a car as they pull up to a bank and the guy pops out to rob the bank and the woman's waiting and then a cop walks up and she gets out of the car to talk to the cop. This is all one shot. So the camera's still in the back and then the alarm goes off and then they get back in the car and they drive away. It's just it almost reminds me of Children of Men, like one of those tracking shots from there.
Okay.
And I'm sure Alfonso Cuarón saw this shot. It's clear to see how they did it, but it's just really, the whole movie's worth checking out, but just this one shot really shows like kind of a modern innovation of like, wow, this is like a 3-4 minute shot. It's unbroken. It's really well staged. But you also know like, well, it was kind of a lower budget movie. So they just put it in the back, but it's just fascinating. You can go on YouTube and see the shot, just put in Gun Crazy, unbroken take.
I was adding A Lonely Place to my watch list.
Yes, definitely. Yeah. I think Gun Crazy as a movie is definitely worth checking out, but I'm spotlighting this shot. So Jen, where can people find you if they want to find you?
Well, Jennifer Lee Weaver, either on socials or website is where you can find me. And I'm also doing a project called One Love Forward. And one thing we've been doing lately is having open mic writing events, so that if you've written something, even if it's in an early stage, you get 5 minutes, say it in front of a group of people. It's a nice way to get started, get feedback, feel better about your writing, all of that. So look for that as well.
That's great. Definitely check that out. You can find me on Instagram and Letterboxd, both Edward Clow. You can check out some scripts I've written on Script Revolution. You can go on Vimeo and see some short films I've done. Jen is in one of them. If you have any questions, you can write me at hindsightingquestions@gmail.com. Jen, this was a great conversation. You're kicking off our third season. It's like you kicked off our second one.
Welcoming me back.
Yeah. Well, I know this is a movie that when I decided to do this podcast, I had a list of movies that I knew I wanted to do with certain people. And I knew this was a movie I'd
like a quick shout out to someone Ed also knew, Mariah Gresham Robinson, my late wife. This was like her favorite movie.
Yeah. And I wanted to have Mariah on. I had this podcast idea so long ago. She was still with us.
Yeah.
So
it's been 7 years, if you can believe it.
I mean, no offense. I'd rather have her sitting there for this than you.
I'm not offended.
Or both of you.
Yeah.
Would have been great.
Yeah.
No, I thought a lot about Mariah. I remember Jen used to live with me and in my back house. We weren't married. But I remember you had... Was it the poster or was it you had something from this movie?
Yeah, I have a poster and we have it. Renee and I have it in our home now.
Yeah. And so I think when I saw that, I was like, oh, if I ever do that podcast, All About Eve, you know, so they're
the book she had it was her book that I read,
right.
All About Eve.
And it's interesting that the guy who wrote, I think his name is Sam Staggs. You can check me on that, but he also wrote All About Sunset Boulevard. So the fact that the same author,
that would be a cool book to read.
Yeah,
thanks for bringing it up.
You would be fascinated by it.
I bet I would be. Yeah,
because it's fascinating that the same author decided that both these movies are worth looking at. And again, check out Oscar Wars is an incredible book, but if you only read one chapter, the chapter on this Best Actress race, which goes into the Oscar politics and the studio politics and what was going on with Judy Holliday, because Judy Holliday dies 12 years later of breast cancer.
Oh, God.
So she's out. So Bette Davis and Gloria Swanson outlived both of. They both outlived.
Wild.
Yeah. So not to be maudlin about this, but
and then Marilyn Monroe dies 12 years later.
Yeah.
No, 13 years later.
No, 12. I think you're right. I think
12.
62. Yeah. I mean, she's yeah. A sad thing about the 50s is that it's a lot more fatalities just in terms of I mean, Bette Davis lives to ripe old age. I think Swanson does too.
Yes.
So,
yes.
I mean, they don't meet with tragic ends, but I mentioned just in passing Rebel Without a Cause, all three of the stars of that movie died young or relatively young. I mean, so anyway, on that sunny note, we're going to... But Jen, thank you for kicking off our season so well, and we'll have you back soon, or at least soonish. This will be another long season. So thank you for that. That's our show. Next episode, composer Ronen Landa and I discuss the best picture of 1951, An American in Paris. Till then, looking forward to looking back.